Tonight, live from the Skydome in Toronto, it's the Calgary Stampeders and the Toronto Argonauts, and a very special presentation of the CFL Live. The state of the CFL in 1995. And we want your opinion on these 4 questions. Should the CFL make any rule changes to make the game more like American football? Do you think the import ratio should stay the same? Should the American teams remain in the CFL? And do you think the CFL will survive until the year 2000? We'll have the results of our phone poll, and at halftime, CFL Commissioner Larry Smith will be our special guest. Up next, the CFL Live on TSN. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the CFL Live on TSN. It's the 15-2 Calgary Stampeders versus the 3-14 Toronto Argonauts. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Darren DeTish, and welcome to Skydome on what is Unity Night here. Now, every fan that came to the game tonight with a Canadian flag got in for free. The referendum will be held on Monday. Today, the fans were speaking out. We've got a good patriotic crowd on hand this evening. We expect a very good football game as well. We're also going to get interactive with you, the viewer at home. We've compiled 4 questions. We hope you give us a call and answer them on the Canadian Football League. Now for 4 on the game itself, let's head up to John Wells and Leif Pedersen. Guys?
All right, Darren, the big story here at Skydome tonight, the return of Doug Flutie to the Calgary Stampeders starting quarterback spot for the first time in 8 weeks. A lot of people are surprised. How about you?
Well, John, yeah, I'm a little bit surprised, but I don't think it couldn't have come at a better time because Jeff Garcia, who's played so well, really couldn't play tonight. So for Doug Flutie, what a great thing for the league to see him back. Now, he went down to Los Angeles and visited with Dr. Joe, performed the surgery, and he said that, you know, Doug, you're probably not 100%, but now you have to be the judge of how well you feel. And, you know, even though he's not 100%, Doug Flutie wants to play, and he's going to give it a shot tonight, and we'll see how he does.
Yeah, we're not expecting him to play the entire football game tonight here at Skydome. The Stampeders have a chance to be 16-2 on the season with a victory here tonight, and that would be very nice, but nothing is going to be really making things happy in Calgary unless the Stampeders win the Northern Division final, and the pressure is on Wally Buono and his group to do so.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. You know, all you want to do at the end of the regular season is just position yourself nicely for the playoffs. Well, the Stampeders have done that, but they did that a year ago and a year before that and lost both Western finals. So make no mistake, 16-2 or 15-3 would be great, but unless they win the Grey Cup, it really won't matter to any players on that team.
Toronto Argonauts are 3-14. It's safe to say they wouldn't be that way if everyone had a heart as big as Mike Pinball Clemens, and his teammates can do something special for this little guy tonight.
Boy, they really can. You know, as you see there, he leads the league going into the final week in all-purpose yardage, and I hope somehow tonight that they give him the ball 30 times and, you know, try and make something bright out of a horrible season and reward one of the classiest guys that's ever played in the city of Toronto.
So we'll watch the pinball, and we'll also watch Doug Flutie tonight, and we'll wave our Canadian flags because it is Flag Night here at Skydome. Darren?
Hey, thanks very much, gentlemen. We're going to have a lot of fun with the fans in the stands. We also want to get you involved. As we mentioned off the top of the show, we're going to get interactive. We've compiled 4 questions. Now, here they are. Should the CFL make any rule changes to make the game more like U.S. football? Do you think the import ratio should stay the same? Should the U.S. teams remain in the CFL? And do you think the CFL will survive until the year 2000? You can give us a call at 1-900-870-2299. Now, earlier this week, the Toronto Argonauts and their whole organization were doing their part for country unity, albeit a tad out of key.
Strong and free, from far and wide.
inside Skydome tonight as the Argos get set to finish off the 1995 football season. The Calgary Stampeders are gearing up for a run at the Grey Cup. Argos coming in at 3-14. It has not been a fun year, but hopefully the fans here in attendance tonight can enjoy proceedings and cheer up Bob Obilovich, because he's been a pretty sad head coach since taking over the reins of the Argos for the third time.
You know, John, it was funny yesterday at our media conference with Bob Obilovich. I walked up and I said, "Hi, Obi, how you doing?" And he said, "Well, how do you think I'm doing?" "I'm having a horrible year." And there you see his record all time as a head coach, still above 500.
But he's going about that 500 record the wrong way, because it's creeping up in the last column. Wally Buono well over 500. 80-26-1. There has been no better head coach in Canadian football in the 90s than Wally Buono. He has done everything but win the Grey Cup more often than once. This is Pee Wee Smith, ready to return for the Stampeders. He's out near the 35. 15-yard return after a 57-yard kickoff. And here comes the four-time CFL most outstanding player, Doug Flutie, getting a chance to start a ball game for the first time since August 18th, and a chance to test his ailing elbow before the playoffs begin.
And you know, John, he's nervous tonight. You know, I chatted with him and I said, "How you feeling?" He said, "Look, I'm nervous. I don't know. It's like that pitcher who comes back for surgery. Can I throw that 90-mile-an-hour heat?" Doug Flutie's still not sure whether he can.
Well, he'll put it up on the first down, and he's on target, well short of the first down. But he has Daniels. Flutie hitting on 67% of his passes. Before being injured back against San Antonio, he came in and played against Birmingham. His last game, he was 14 of 22 for 128 yards in the Stampeders' first loss of the season. Those were not Doug Flutie numbers back then. No gain on the play. This will be 2nd and 10. Flutie from the shotgun. Over the middle. Behind his target, but the catch is made anyway by Danielson. Vince Danielson, number 88, who's developing into a solid receiver.
Boy, John, they test Doug Flutie right off the bat. Watch Donnie Wilson come right up the gut into Flutie's face, and Doug Flutie on his second play of coming back from the injury has to stand in and deliver a strike and stand in and take the hit. And boy, Vince Danielson makes a great catch, but boy, Flutie took one.
14 yards the gain, and Flutie missed on a toss to Dave Supungis, number 25. Mr. Everything in Calgary this year. Voted the most outstanding player and the top Canadian on the Stampeders in 1995, and not many are arguing the selection.
Well, he's had the best year, obviously, of his career. Had 103 catches back in 1993, but now to have gone over that 100-yard reception yard mark twice is truly phenomenal.
And Flutie will take off. He had that in mind right from the start, out of the shotgun, and Flutie on second down is out near first down territory. Center Jamie Crysdale is nominated as the Stampeders' best offensive lineman in 1995. The whole group has been great. Just 29 sacks allowed up front. Even without Alan Pitts, the receiving corps is great. Dave Supungis, the double nominee, is the most outstanding player in top Canadian, and Stewart will run the ball for the Stampeders, who want to do a little more of that as they gear up for the playoffs here tonight.
You know, you see Doug Flutie's face coming off the field. He is such an intense competitor. I know he wanted to come back, start the game tonight, and take that opening drive down and not even get a field goal. He wanted to get the touchdown, and I'll bet you he's frustrated that he wasn't able to do that.
Came up 1.5 yards shy, so on third down, Martino is in. Across the 45 to get a kick away to the pinball Mike Clemens. Chase back to the 5. And he ran into one of his own men. It was Marcelo Simmons, number 9. There is a 1-yard return after a 49-yard punt. It's Flutie versus this guy at Skydome tonight. Back live at Skydome, the Argos will be 1st and 10 beginning at the 7-yard line. Kent Austin makes his 13th start as the Argos quarterback. It's been a tough season. He has won only 1 game wearing double blue. the pinball. Mike Clemens breaking loose for some hard quad yardage off left tackle. This explains some of the frustration for Kent Austin so far this season. Only 12 touchdowns compared to 18 interceptions. Left guard Pierre Vercheval is the Argos nominee as the top lineman in 1995. For Canadian Unity at Skydome, 4 homegrown receivers, Masadi, Moriali, Climie, and Crepo tonight. And the Argos' most outstanding player is Mike Clemens, who has the ball again and comes close to an Argonaut first down.
Going to open the ball game, the Toronto Argonauts try and keep it on the ground, and that's going to be a tough thing to do all night long. This Calgary defense only 54 yards rushing against. I mean, this team is tough to run against, John.
Stampeders defense rock solid. Marvin Pope and Will Johnson have 30 sacks between them. The linebacking core, 2 outstanding player nominees. Rookie of the Year Anthony McClanahan, and the top defensive player Alondra Johnson. And rookie Jackie Kellogg is the newest face in the secondary, making his second start. Austin got it away for Dwayne Ford this time, and he's up near the 30. So a little spark in the Argos as they're out around the 30-yard line, and we bring in Darren Decision.
Hey, thanks very much, John. I don't want you to think that I'm sitting down or relaxing or taking my job not seriously enough, but just happens to be where I'm sitting at this occasion. A number of fans were fortunate enough to win tickets to sit back here behind the Argos bench and watch the game, including one of the fans is Dennis to my right. Not only is he an Argo fan, but he happens to be a Bomber fan. Now, what we've done, Dennis, is we've compiled 4 questions that we're going to pose to fans during the course of the night. I'd like to ask you a couple. Do you think the CFL should make any more rule changes to make the game more like American football?
No, I believe we should keep the Canadian rules there because it is a Canadian game. And I think it'll be just coming another American league if we start changing the rules.
So what do you think about the import ratio? Do you think that they should maintain it, keep the Canadians status quo as it stands right now, or do you think they should alter it?
I think it should be altered a little bit. If you want the Canadian teams, some of the weaker teams to be competitive with some of the stronger American teams, you may have to increase it a little bit.
Dennis, we appreciate your time tonight, and thank you for your views.
Argos moving the ball rather well. That's Mazzotti for 13, and right there is the pinball Mike Clemens as he is out across the 50-yard line. The questions we're asking on the phone poll, we invite you to give us a call at 1-900-870-2299. And some rather tough questions we'll put to the commissioner of the Canadian Football League, Larry Smith, at halftime, and would appreciate your response. 2nd and 2, Toronto. Again, it's Clemens, and this time nowhere to go. He is wrapped up rather quickly.
John, I think you see it's apparent on the opening drive by the Argonauts. They are going to, in fact, try and get the ball into the hands of Mike Clemens tonight and, you know, amass as much yardage for him as they can. He carried the ball almost exclusively on that opening drive. Although they didn't pick up the first down there, he's adding to that league-leading total. And we are going to chart that total for you as this game progresses.
Coleman is deep for Baker's kick, and it's high and deep. Chasing Coleman back to the 5 and inside. This guy has been great for the Stampeders and returns all season long, and on the corner, this time there's nowhere to go. Wrapped up by Argos special teams after a 1-yard return.
CFL Live on TSN. Brought to you by Pepsi. Nothing else is a Pepsi. And by Bell. Advantage long-distance services from the Alliance of Canada's only full-service telecommunications companies.
Back live at Skydome, nothing on the score sheet so far. Stampeders' second possession with Doug Flutie at the controls for the first time in 8 weeks. Snaps begin at the 5-yard line. Flutie quickly for Pee Wee Smith. He slants in and gains maybe 1 yard. The ball came loose. The Argos are celebrating, but I think the Stampeders will retain possession. Argo defense relies on the pass rush from Jeff Cummins and Swift Birch up front. Calvin Tiggle is the key in the middle, with Sheldon Benoit getting his second straight start. Secondary has been shuffled all season. This is the same group that played last week against Memphis and lost. Stampeders looking at 2nd and 8. Flutie stands in and fires one. He's on target to Vince Danielson. Marcelo Simmons made the tackle on Danielson. Out of the backfield for the Stampeders, Vince Danielson, number 88. It's flat back, and Sean Daniels expected to run the football a bit tonight.
You know, one of the things I overheard with the owner, Larry Rickman, and Wally Buono talking about tonight is Larry Rickman said, look, I don't want Doug throwing deep tonight, and I think this is about the limit that the owner wants to see him throw, and Wally kind of said, well, how do you tell him that?
23-yard gain in the previous play, and here's Stewart cracking his way through the middle for another Stampeder first down. Stewart averages 4.3 yards a carry. He has 3 touchdowns on the season, 16 yards in the previous play, and they want to get him the football a bit tonight. Speaking of cold weather football around the corner.
Yeah, his rushing totals aren't what they were a year ago, but I think you have to look to Sean Daniels having a full season at fullback. He's carried the ball more than the fullback has in the past, so they've kind of balanced it out a little bit better.
Another Stampeder first down. Flutie's longest toss of the night, right on target for Dave Sapunjas. And he's wrestled out of bounds near the 40-yard line. Murphy got over to make the tackle there and forced Sapunjas out of town. That time, a 25-yard toss by Flutie.
And one of the things that Dave Sapunjas does so well, and here he is just to run away from people. And, you know, a lot more often than not, here's the position, straighten Maurice Kelly up, and now just run away, use the whole field. And, hey, there's a lot of things Sapunjas does well, but that's one of them, to come all the way across the field and, you know, make himself a good target.
And with Pitts out of there, Sapunjas is seeing quite a bit of double coverage in the last couple of weeks. Flutie looks to take off himself, and he's gone inside the 30-yard line and stepping out of bounds inside the 20.
Well, you know, when you haven't played for 8 games, got the fresh legs now all of a sudden. I mean,
you're right.
You know, this isn't mid-season for Doug. This is like the beginning of the season for Doug. And, you know, he's just been itching to get out and run around and make things happen a little bit. I mean, he's so good at this nice move initially. Look what he does to Swift Perch on the outside. And there he goes. Flutie's got the fresh legs out there tonight.
He looks fast, 21 yards the gain.
He looks faster than normal.
Setting the Stampeders up.
That's a nervous twitch there. You see that mouth going. I mean, he's nervous, you know.
And the Stampeders are inside the Toronto 20. Flutie releasing quickly, and good coverage that time by Tommy Henry. Over to knock it away.
And that's the difference with Doug Flutie right now. You can tell that he's still not sure how much zip he's got in that right arm, because that was a pass that normally he would have thrown quite hard, and he just floated that one into Vince Danielson, and Tommy Henry was able to break it up. But, you know, it's the old thing, like Flutie says, I don't know how good my arm is. Has the tendon totally reattached to the bone? He's not quite sure, and you saw it on that pass.
2nd and 10. Stampeders at the Argonaut 18, and there's early movement and flags everywhere. Interesting, when Flutie was talking before the game, he said his elbow hadn't been sore from throwing the ball this week, but his shoulder was a little sore.
Well, it's like training camp again. You always get the sore shoulder in training camp, and he's going through those same types of things right now.
Offside. Toronto number 90. Repeat the down.
You know, John, you talk about soreness in the arm. You know, this is a tough part to figure out. Is it soreness from the injury, or is it just normal soreness? I mean, all quarterbacks throughout the whole season have some sort of soreness in their arm. I mean, you can't throw that many balls for 18 games and not feel a little bit. So this is some of the mind games that Flutie's going to have to wrestle with tonight. I think he's smart enough to know when it's like real sore or just a little bit sore from the normal throwing.
Little confusion down there as the officials on the far side marched off the penalty the wrong way, and Flutie was wondering what had gone wrong when they'd already identified Swift Birch of the Argos as the man responsible for the penalty. 2nd and 5, Calgary. Flutie looks to run. Chased down by Jeff Cummins. And the hole closed up rather quickly. Number 99, Jeff Cummins, with 6 sacks on the season. Doesn't get credit for a sack here.
You know, John, you talk about Pinball Clements having a great year. There's Jeff Cummins right there, and this guy's made quite an impact with this team, playing the short side in and working on Bobby Pantelidis. You know, he gets held and everything, and, you know, he just doesn't quit, keeps coming. I circled Noah Cantor, but it was to the outside Cummins, and Jeff Cummins has made quite an impact with this team.
Steve Brannon actually making an interception on the play, but he was out of bounds because the ball squirted loose and right into his hands. Mark McLaughlin is in. He was good on 6 of 7 last week in a win over Saskatchewan. And this time they'll fake it as Flutie looks to the end zone. Buys a little more time and has it picked off by Calvin Tiggle. Flutie's going to try everything tonight. Calvin Tiggle has his 2nd interception of the season. The Argos don't give up any points. We're running a phone poll on CFL Live tonight. We'd appreciate your response. There's the number. Here are some of the key questions. Should the CFL make any rule changes to make it more like the USL, the U.S. game? Do you think the import ratio should stay the same? Should U.S. teams remain in the CFL?
John, for 75 cents, you get to answer all 4 questions. So go ahead, take a shot at these, and we'd like to hear what you think. I know what I think about some of them.
Here's Austin looking deep for Crefo, and he's got it. Crefo out near the 45. Kellogg makes the tackle. Crefo has 31, and here's Darren.
Hey, thanks very much, guys. We're up here in Windows, just kind of hanging out, watching a little bit of the football game. And who did we bump into? Granny Liggins, longtime Argo. Your thoughts on the football game and the way it's progressed? You saw the questions. We were talking a little bit earlier about the game. Do you think the Canadian Football League game will continue to progress and will continue to get stronger with its expansion in the South?
I think that what we have to do in Canada is keep the C in CFL. I think we have some strong players here. Our game is very competitive. It's very different. Let's remember that it's very different and it's very creative. So let's keep the Canadian content in the Canadian Football League.
So when you hear somebody like Pepper Rogers from the Memphis Mad Dogs saying that we've got to alter the game, we've got to change it, perhaps go to the 4 downs, does that get your dandruff up a little bit?
Oh, it gets my dandruff. If I had hair, that would even
get your dander out.
Hair. Because the thing about it, though, is that this is our, this is our league, okay? They have the National Football League. This is the Canadian Football League. So this is our structure of the game. So let's keep it Canadian. It's very unique. It's not the same. So we can't pair the two together.
Having said that, though, do you like the teams from the States?
I'm more partial to Calgary, obviously, because I got my career started in CFL in Calgary. But the new teams. I've got a lot of things to say about the new team South. The ownership is a problem. We need more credible people down there representing the Canadian Football League, so that's a problem.
Well, it was a pleasure talking to you. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, and go Argos, go. I almost said Stamps.
Morreale makes the catch, and the Argos have another first down. Pizzotti provided a first down just prior to that. And this all-Canadian receiving corps looking rather good tonight, Lee.
You know, you just read my mind. It was about time to tell everybody that. I can't remember the last all-Canadian starting receiving corps. And, of course, the Argos have done that with Mike Morreale, who just made that catch, and Paul Mazzotti at the wide receivers, Jock Climby and Rob Crefo inside. But pretty interesting. Bob Abilovich yesterday couldn't remember a receiving corps that was all-Canadian.
Morreale again, and this will be another Argonaut first down. Alondra Johnson made the tackle on Morreale, who has 2 in a row and 2 first downs in a row.
Well, that was his 15th catch of the year. Now, he had 5 in one game against Ottawa early in the year. And, you know, at that point, I thought, hey, this guy looks pretty good. And for some reason, he just didn't get a lot of playing time. But now he's getting a chance to start tonight. He played a lot a week ago when John Morton was hurt. And, I mean, I think this guy's got all the tools. He's got speed. He catches the ball well. He's like any young Canadian. He's playing time.
Here's Mike Clemens. Nice run by Clemens, short of the first down by a couple of yards as the hole closed up quickly. Greg Knox was there, and he had a little help from Alondra Johnson, number 51.
Well, one of the things the Argonauts are doing a lot better tonight is getting good blocks at the point of the attack. That's John Terry, the left tackle. And watch the seal block now on Gonzalez Floyd there, and that gets the seal and enough of a hole created that Mike Clemens can get in there and do his thing.
Gain is 6, 2nd and 4 Argos. Just outside the Calgary 20. Austin can't connect with Paul Mazzotti, number 88. Interesting to note, too, Leaf, that 88 and 78, Mazzotti and Morreale are cousins. And I would think it's the first time in a long, long time that cousins have started at the 2 wideout spots in Canadian football.
Yeah, they got a lot of cousins. Sardo, the linebacker, backup linebacker, he's a cousin. So, I mean, these guys have slowly taken over this team. They should be playing for Wally Bowano. The Italian connection.
Absolutely. Terry Baker, 20 of 23. His longest on the season is 48. This is well within range from just outside the 25. And the Argos have scored first. A decent drive by Toronto. They settled for 3. Terry Baker on target. It's 3-0 Argos. Phone poll again. There's the number for 75 cents. Well, you get your 75 cents worth.
Yeah, answer all 4. Only cost you $0.75 of a buck.
And at halftime, the commissioner, Larry Smith, will respond to our poll results in a discussion with Darren Detition. Parker on the play was against the Stampeders. So the Argos get it right back with a first down. Austin pump fakes once, looks to the end zone. And Creepo has the touchdown. Nice catch by Creepo. Made it look rather casual, didn't he?
Well, you know, Paul Mazzani kind of thought it was going to him, and at the last second, he backed off and let Rob Creepo extend out and make this catch, and what a beautiful catch it was over Gerald Vaughn. You know, this looked like what we expected the Argos to be like in the first part of the season.
They were back in July.
Calling themselves the Bomb Squad. All of a sudden now on this drive, they were completing balls, they were running the ball well, and you know, this is what they hoped they would have done. You're right, back in July, but nevertheless, it sure looks good tonight.
Creepo had a couple of touchdowns early, but it's been a long time since Austin has celebrated like this.
Well, only 13 times as he found the end zone from a pass from his right arm this year. A very disappointing year, obviously, for him. He's quoted in the papers the other day as saying, I just want to get this thing over with, but on the other hand, I can't wait to start next season so I can somehow redeem myself. There's a long way to go till next season, and who knows what's going to happen. But I know Kent Austin's burning from the bad year that he had, and I'm happy for Rob Creepo. I've always felt, said this many times, that I think he should have had a lot more playing time than the Argonauts gave him this year, and tonight he's getting a chance to start, and he made just a heck of a touchdown catch there.
The Argos haven't had much luck at all this season, just 3 wins all year. And scoring first hasn't always meant victory. But they haven't scored first that frequently either. Kickoff coming down to Tyrone Edwards, number 23. And a decent return. He's out near the Stampeder 40-yard line. Sheldon Benoit led the tacklers. Creepo, the 17-yard reception. 9 plays to cover 96 yards. One of the best Argo drives all season long.
And a new quarterback for the Calgary Stampeders. Doug Flutie played most of the first quarter. And now Sean Moore, who the Stampeders got in a trade with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers earlier in the season, began the season with the Ottawa Rough Riders, and now has found himself in Calgary. The most famous statistic about Sean Moore is he backed up John Elway for 3 years with the Denver Broncos.
On first down for the Stampeders, that's Moore's first play from scrimmage. In red and white, Tony Stewart, the ball carrier there. Flutie on the sidelines, 5 of 8, 65 yards. That's a decent number for Flutie. He wanted to get the end zone. He wanted to get some points on the board, but he did show a lot of authority when he was in the game.
Well, I think he was able to show Wally Buono and John Hufnagel all they wanted to see. He can play. And I'm sure next week, if Jeff Garcia's ankle's better, Jeff Garcia has earned the right to start in that Northern Division semifinal. But Doug Flutie showed them what the coaches wanted to see.
Stewart on 2nd and 3, and he stopped a little bit short of the first down by Calvin Tiggle. 2 seconds left in the opening quarter. Decently well played and quick first 15 minutes of football league.
Tell you one thing that disturbs me, though, and we're almost finished the first quarter. This Stampeder team looks like it's going through the motions a little bit. I know Flutie came out of the storm, and he's 5 for 8 and all that stuff, but this looks like a pretty complacent team tonight that just kind of wants to play the string out. This isn't the intensity level that the Stampeders normally have.
Well, Flutie is back in on 3rd down, less than a yard to go.
Right 18.
right side. Fake the option, and Flutie still standing, crossing the 50, but hit by Dan Murphy at the 49. Number 20 wants to play a little football. We'll see how much action he gets tonight as Jeff Garcia looks on from the sideline. That's the correct story there. It might be a little surprising to some. The Argos leading the Stampeders 7-0. The Advantage World Curling Tour from the Highland Country Club in London marks the opening of TSN's curling season. First of 4 Advantage World Curling Tour events. Former world champions Kerry Burtnick, Russ Howard right here, Ed Wernick and Kevin Martin will head a stellar field as curling gets underway on TSN. Well, maybe Obi will crack a smile for us tonight, Lee.
Well, he sure has a lot of things to think about right now, and the uncertainty as to the ownership of the football club in the offseason. What is Interbrew going to do? Are they going to keep it? Are they going to try and unload it? And a lot of things must be going through the mind of Bob Abilovich.
Stampeders with a first down at the Argonaut 49. Sean Moore on target. A little swing pass up for Pee Wee Smith. Always a threat out there, and a marker comes down with Smith going out of bounds. Might have been a face masking call, but Smith has 16 yards. Darren?
Hey, thanks very much, gentlemen. I'm hanging out in the press box now, and I'm joined by Rick Matsumoto, who has been covering the Toronto Argonauts for a long time, writes for the Toronto Star. We appreciate you taking the time and joining us tonight. Look at the Argos. They're up by a count of 7-0. Unfortunately, it's their last game of the season, and there's a lot to go yet in the game.
Well, that's always been the story. I think Argos have been up in front a couple of times this year, I think, and but always the opposition seems to have come back and beaten them. It hasn't been a very good year for them, and I think most of the people will be quite happy to see this season end.
Can you remember a more tenuous season for Toronto?
Oh yes, there was a famous Willie Wood year when they were 0-12 back in 1979. No, 81. So somewhere in around there. So. They're having worse years, believe it or not.
We've talked about the past. What about the future of the Canadian Football League? What do you foresee happening, Rick, specifically with expansion into the United States? Will the U.S.-based teams remain with the CFL, or will we go back to the old Canadian Football League with just Canadian teams?
I think it'll be a mixture still. I still believe that the CFL can be successful in the U.S., but maybe not everywhere. Like in Shreveport, Memphis might be a problem. But I think places like Baltimore could be a success. Maybe San Antonio. I think, you know, if you have a winning team in San Antonio this year, that team could survive. So maybe we're going to have 8 CFL teams in Canada and maybe 2, 3, 4 in the U.S. And maybe not the grandiose plan of 8 teams north and south that the commissioner had in mind.
We appreciate you taking the time. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
John Danielson, big catch for a 19-yard gain for the Stampeders, and that'll have Calgary set up at the 27.
I'm getting nervous. Darren's getting closer to us. We started him in the lounge chair. Now he's slowly working his way up to where we are. I thought we were going to keep him down the field today.
Well, he's on a remote mic. He can be anywhere in Skydome this evening. Here's what it looked like with the numbers in the opening quarter. Argonauts have the 7-0 lead. Stampeders have the first down. And that's Sean Daniels averaging 4.2 yards a carry. John Hufnagel wanted to run the ball a little bit more with his Stampeder offense tonight, saying that Stewart and Daniels, he wanted to get the ball in their hands at least 20 times between them.
You know, you talk about Sean Daniels, and I mentioned it earlier, it's a much more balanced attack that John Hufnagel's put in. But, you know, Sean Daniels carried the ball 59 times coming in as the fullback. Last year, Blair Zur, who was their starting fullback, only had 10 carries all year, so you can see how they tried to spread it around a little bit.
Second down for Sean Moore. He's going for Vaughn and going for 6. Comes up a little short, or should I say a little long, with Marcelo Simmons covering, and Moore overthrew his intended target, Terry Vaughn, who's closing in on 1,000 yards in his first season as a full-time receiver in Calgary.
Terry Vaughn really felt like he might be able to get a deep one on Marcelo Simmons, and so did Sean Moore. You know, they talked about this before the game because they'd seen on film Joe Horn from Memphis last week just was able to eat up Marcelo Simmons on those long ones, and Calgary feels like they can do the same thing.
Flutie will hold for Mark McLaughlin the last time. McLaughlin was out there. They faked it this time. McLaughlin is on the mark. 6 of 7 last week. He's on a pretty nice run. 48 field goals, 56 attempts, over 85%.
3M Innovation at Work.
Well, the Argos invited a few extra fans tonight. If you brought a flag, you got in free. Tommy Henry draws a flag on the return out near the 30. 20-yard return there. Response has been pretty good to our phone poll. The phone poll so far tonight, 1-900-870-2299. 75 cents per call, and you get to vote on 4 questions there. John, you don't get a chance to vote on the referendum. No. You're not living in Quebec. You can try our CFL Live phone poll.
First down.
Well, you know, anybody that really likes to watch and has an interest in the CFL, I mean, those are 4 questions that kind of cover the whole spectrum of what maybe the problems are, what the future may bring for the league. You see the holding call right there is going to bring it back, but and those questions really will give us a pretty solid answer as to what the fans think.
Dwayne Ford takes the pass from Austin after a play-action fake to Mike Clemens, and Alondra Johnson had him wrapped up in a hurry. Ken Austin engineered a 96-yard scoring drive for a touchdown, finished off with a pass to Rob Crefo the last time he had his hands on the ball. Now he's looking at second and just over 10 yards. Deep in Argo territory at the 20. And right on target, this is Morielli, number 78. He's had a big night already. Mike Morielli, second time as a starter at wide receiver. Morielli has 36 4-yards.
Hey, thanks very much, gentlemen. Joining me now is the owner of the Calgary Stampeders, Larry Rickman. Larry, let's talk a little bit about the league, the CFL itself. The regular season is drawing to a close. The playoffs are coming up, but yet we expect some turmoil in the offseason once again with the expansion teams. Give us your perspective on how things have gone so far this year, particularly with expansion.
Well, I think that we predicted for the first time that we wouldn't have any team failures for this season, and I think that's very positive. I think expansion has gone a lot slower, and I think it's had a rockier road than some of us expected. But candidly, I really want to reassure our fans here, especially in Canada. This game has been around 104 years, and there's a lot of us owners that are absolutely committed to this league, and this league's going to be here another 104 years. And whether we have 10 teams in the U.S. or 5 teams in the U.S. or no teams in the U.S., the CFL will always survive.
So what happens when you hear some of your southern counterparts stating that they want to change the rules of the game?
No way. It's as simple as that. It just isn't going to happen. I was born in this country. I mean, I don't make money at this. This is a labor of love for me, and very, very candidly, we are not going to let rules change in this league. And I can tell you that I've talked to every single Canadian owner, and they're standing by it. We don't want to fix something that isn't broken. There are other leagues. In fact, I don't know any other league that is 104 years old. And the only way that this league's going to survive is keeping something good, and that's the rules of the game.
So what do you think about moving the schedule up? In the first half of the season, the attendance down in the States was relatively good. But then as soon as the NFL and the college ball came along, the attendance dropped off dramatically. I think it proved the fact that you can't go head-to-head with them, nor do you guys want to.
Well, I'm a big fan of starting the season earlier simply because I don't like playing when it's 30 below out. And I think it's difficult for fans, as loyal as they are, even in a city like Calgary. Nobody likes to go out there and freeze. And we have two playoff games coming up. I hope that the weather's great. But when weather starts to become a factor, that's affecting the viability of the league. So personally, I would like to see the season start earlier.
Yeah, 2 playoff games, but you have to win the first one, right? Sorry, I like your attitude. You're very aggressive.
Oh, yeah, we are an aggressive organization. We're going to the Grey Cup this year. Calgary is going to win it. It's as simple as that.
It's our pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Argos are winning this one here tonight. A decent drive. Highlight play. A 33-yard reception by Masadi. Sets up Baker with a field goal try here. And Baker is 1 for 1. The Argos add to their lead. Toronto on top of the Calgary Stampeders. We're in the second quarter at Skydome. That's not a misprint. The Argos have scored twice against the best team in the Canadian Football League for a 10-3 lead with 9:19 to go till halftime. This coming down to Edwards, standing at his 12 for the Stampeders. He's got great speed. Finally caught from behind by Greg Eaglin, number 13. Tyrone Edwards, averaging 9.8 yards every time he touches the ball, but he stands in behind Tony Stewart in the backfield of the Stampeders.
Well, I guess, John, when you look at the Stampeders, I mean, you talk great defense, always good offense, but you know what they do, and sometimes kind of quietly, is have great special teams, too. You know, you look at Tony Martino and Mark McLaughlin, the kicking game, and then guys like Tyrone Edwards and Pee Wee Smith and Marvin Coleman with the kick returns. They always have great field position. Look at this drive where it starts.
45-yard return sets the Stampeders up. It's flipped back to Sean Moore, and Moore decides to take out. There's a marker already down, as Moore has plenty for a first down, but we'll have to check out the infraction. Moore forced out by the middle linebacker Calvin Tiggle after picking up 15.
Forced out of bounds by Calvin Tiggle.
Don Ellis in charge of proceedings tonight. The indication against the Argonauts.
Holding. Toronto number 6. Penalties decline. First down.
Stampeders will take the 15 on the penalty against Tommy Henry.
And then a pitch back to Sean Moore. That's exactly what happened. The receiver trying to get open. Tommy Henry was beaten and just hauled him down.
First and 10, Stampeders at the Argonaut 38. And Stewart gets the call. He's got about 4. Tony Stewart averages 4.3 yards per carry, 628 yards rushing coming into the game, and that time wrapped up by Steve Brandon. If you're just joining us, CFL Live has a special phone poll tonight if you'd like to take part. There's the number, 1-900-870-2299. 75 cents per call, and you can vote on all of these questions. We'll have some answers from the Commissioner Larry Smith at halftime with Darren Detition. Second down, Moore stands in calmly and had a mix-up. Was he going for Stewart or Danielson? He was right in between, Lee.
Why he's laughing, he's not really sure. I think maybe, you know, as the third-string quarterback, you look at this receiving corps with so many great players out there, you kind of just say sometimes, I'll just throw it up. One of them's going to get close to it and maybe make a big touchdown catch. Sean Moore is laughing as he comes off, and you know, he wasn't quite sure who he was looking for there.
Third down, and Mark McLaughlin is in. 1 for 1. So far, Flutie will hold.
And that's one of the nice differences to have Doug Flutie back. He did this a week ago, and I know Mark McLaughlin really is happy to have him back as the holder.
McLaughlin was 6 of 7 last week. He's 2 for 2 tonight, and the Stampeders close a little on the front-running Argonauts. 10-6 at Skydome. At halftime, on the McDonald's halftime report, CFL Commissioner Larry Smith with Darren Detition answering some of the questions on the phone poll and a few more from Darren. You know, John, final night of the regular season for the Argos. Sorry, Labor.
And this isn't going to be just a little 2-minute interview. I mean, this is going to be the whole halftime, and it's going to ask the commissioner some pretty serious questions. And there will be no commercials throughout halftime. You're going to see a full 15 minutes with Larry Smith. He's going to tell you his views on the league. Let's go back to Darren right now. Darren, where are you this time?
Hey, we're down on the sidelines hanging out with 3 proud Canadians, 3 fans. Mark, Paul, Lee, you guys painted your face showing your nationalistic pride as you come to the football game tonight.
Pardon me?
You're showing your nationalistic pride coming out to the football game tonight.
Canada rules. Yep.
Did you do it for the free ticket, or did you do it because you felt that you wanted to send a message to the province of Quebec?
Well, there's got to be CFL football. CFL.
Yeah, CFL all the way.
What do you guys think about the Canadian Football League? You guys are the fans of tomorrow. You're the young guys who are in the stands now, and 5 years from now you'll be buying tickets and bringing your families to the game and stuff. Do you like the changes the CFL has made, and do you think it'll be around in 5 years' time for you to come to the game?
I think it'll be around 5 years. I like the chances with it going to the States. I just hope the States don't overpower the Canada side. But the CFL could go somewhere. It definitely has promise.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Leaf, John, you guys ever paint your face? Back up to the booth.
You know, I don't think I've ever painted my face. I guess we've still got that to look forward to.
Some people wish you maybe had.
Here's the pinball. Mike Clemens on the return. Nifty move, and Clemens still standing, and he's still standing. Didn't get much in return yardage after he put on the little spin around there, but 18 yards total. It all adds up for pinball's all-purpose total. And Austin has had his best start as an Argonaut, I'd venture to say. 12 of 14 for 178 and the 1 touchdown.
Well, he's had good protection tonight. You know, we really haven't talked much about his offensive line, but, you know, it's pretty solid offensive line up in front of him with John Terry, Joe Burgos, 2 import tackles. You mix in Carl Kohler, Chris Giaskis, and Pierre Verchebel. All of a sudden, this group of 5 has given Ken Austin lots of time to throw.
Morelli makes another catch. He's had a great night so far. Al Jordan, a rookie on the left corner, makes the tackle. In fairness to Ken Austin, it has not been a great year for him. Not what we've been accustomed to seeing, but he really has been bothered by just about every injury possible.
Yeah, he's really had a jinx kind of season, and, you know, it hasn't been any fun. Tonight, he seems like he's having a little bit more fun, but I'm kind of surprised at Calgary. They played really passively here in the first half. They have blitzed a lot this year, much more than they used to, and yet they really haven't come at Austin with any extra people.
Mike Clemens finds a little bit of a hole, and then he's surrounded by Stampeders. That's Alondra Johnson hopping on top of the pile. But Clemens was stopped by someone underneath. Looks like Will Johnson, with Greg Knox up for a little support from his safety spot. The pinball has 5 yards.
And Alondra Johnson's had a pretty good year, and in fact was nominated as their Defensive Player of the Year representative, leading the team rather in tackles, as he has done on other occasions.
2nd and 5 for Austin and the Argos. Lots of time to throw. Austin has Mazzotti, and it's knocked away at the last second. Al Jordan reacting well to the football to take it out of the grasp of Paul Mazzotti.
That's pretty good recovery. You know, Paul Mazzani ran a nice quarter pattern. He had Jordan turn completely around, but Jordan closes that distance nicely just at the last second to get the hand in there. But, you know, had that ball been thrown maybe just a little bit sooner, Ken Austin knows it, he had a guy open. And, you know, those are the kind of ones you want to hit, because Mazzani ran a pretty solid pattern for him.
I'm here.
Baker had a booming 52-yard punt earlier. This for Coleman at the 20. Marvin Coleman has about 4 yards on the return. And he's a little upset at the way he was tackled. 44-yard punts. And again, let's bring in Darren.
Hey, thanks very much, gentlemen. Joining me now is Keith Gillespie, who doesn't describe himself as an Argo fan. Indeed, he is. He describes himself more as a CFL football fan. Keith, do you like the prospects of the game in the future to come?
Absolutely. I'm extremely positive on the CFL, and I got something to say to all those CFL fans. We're going to be around for a long time to come.
So what do you think about expansion into the United States? The last couple of years, we've had a number of franchises that have not worked out in Las Vegas and Sacramento. And again, there's turmoil in Shreveport now. They could be possibly moving to Norfolk.
Well, Larry Smith has admitted he's made a few mistakes, but I think it's the right direction to go. It's expand or go away.
We're going to be talking to the commissioner at the half. If you had one question to pose to him, what would you say?
When are the Alouettes coming back to Montreal?
Huge Alouette fan as well. Thanks very much, Keith.
You know, it's funny, John. I know that is really one of the big ambitions from Larry Smith. Now, whether it will ever happen or not, I'm not sure. In fact, if I was a betting man, I'd bet against it. But that fan, you know, Mr. Gillespie hit it on the head. Larry Smith would love to see a team back in Montreal, but I don't know. I think it's a pipe dream.
2nd and 5, Stampeders. Calgary at the 30-yard line. This is Sean Moore at the controls. And this is Tony Stewart making the reception. He'll have enough for a Calgary first down. Leaf, there's an incredible parallel comparing the Canadian separation crisis to the Canadian Football League. The CFL has struggled since the Montreal Alouettes left the fold. And I think the city of Montreal has not been quite the same since the CFL left town. We had some great times, some great Grey Cups there, and things have been a little bit different in Montreal. I think the city has missed football, but it's an interesting parallel to look at the struggle of the CFL now and what we're going through with a referendum on Monday.
Well, on a selfish note, you know, there's no question we missed the trips there. We used to have a pretty good time in Montreal, and well, listen, last chance now to take part in our phone call before halftime, and there's some pretty interesting questions, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that probably have some pretty good answers to some of these questions. Remember, for 75 cents, you get to answer all four. That's not a bad deal.
Rule changes, the import ratio.
Yeah, will it be around in the year 2000? I mean, that's a tough one to answer. You know, I've asked myself that one, and you know, how do you know? You hope it is. I mean, I hope it is, but that's a tough one.
Sean Moore won't get away from this wave of Argonauts. Diggle is there to celebrate the sack. By my calculation, that's only his second of the season, but then Jeff Cummins is acting like it might be his as well. Maybe they shared the quarterback this time, Diggle and Cummins.
Yeah, watch Jeff Cummins. Watch this spin move. I mean, this is a pretty good technique by Cummins, right up the gut. The left guard, Denny Chronopoulos, can't handle the spin, and whoa, Sean Moore's right there. Cummins, the first guy in, gets a little bit of help from Calvin Diggle. But Jeff Cummins, you know, we talked about him earlier. You know, you look at bright spots. Pinball's been one, and well, I have to think that Jeff Cummins has been everything that the Argos hoped he would give them on that weak side end.
Stay still, stay still.
3:02 to halftime as Martino gets a pretty good kick away. Clemens across the 35, a little move there. And he's out to the 43.
Now you think he's fighting for that title? Oh,
yeah,
boy,
he is.
Ever.
He's all heart, and he's only 5'6", 10-yard return. 10 more for the pinball, and how about the Argos? They have a lead by
4. Welcome back to Skydome. During the course of the first half, we've been conducting our own poll. We've been talking to the fans. Willie joins me. And Willie, do you think that the CFL will be around come the year 2000?
I think so in one form or another. There's a grassroots following for the CFL. It still exists. The crowds will be smaller, but I think there'll still be fans around. I think that the fans are loyal. There's a small number of very loyal fans.
Thank you very much, Willie.
Some kind of play there. Paul Mazzotti, a 33-yard toss.
The toss was pretty good, but I'll tell you, the catch was even better. But when you're 6'7", like Rob Crefo is, you can do this. You can go up over the top of Gerald Bond and make this play. Look how he shields the two defenders. And that's a heck of a catch. Got a touchdown catch tonight, and now he makes a big one with just a little over 2 minutes to go in the first half.
Yeah, the Canadian receivers have been a big part of the Argos' success thus
That's
far.
all they have.
Well,
Canadian receivers. They have to be good.
That time he went for Jock Climby and has it picked up by Greg Knox. Knox has his 5th interception of the season, and Climby is the only receiver unable to come up with a football or a reception from Austin so far tonight.
You know, John, I really felt like Jock Climby could have maybe made a better effort to this one. I'm going to let this thing go, and you know, if you can freeze it just right there. Hey,
yeah,
come on now.
Jump.
Get those arms right out there. You might be able to, if you don't catch it, at least you knock it down. Goodness gracious. That's a pretty easy one for Greg Knox. I don't know. It's been a tough year for Jock Climby, in and out of the lineup with injuries and so forth. I just felt like, you know, and I think Kent's saying, you know, hey, go for the ball, would you? Yeah, that's exactly what he's saying.
I think he's talking to his receiver there.
I don't blame him.
Look who's back. Doug Flutie at the controls for the Stampeders again. He wanted to get some playing time in this one tonight. He was off target that time looking for Vince Danielson. Flutie played most of the opening quarter. Moved the ball club, didn't put any points on the board. He's 5 of 9 for 65 right now.
You have to feel like maybe he went to Wally Buono or Huffnagel on the sidelines and said, look, Huffy, I'm okay. Like, I want to play a little bit more. And Sean Moore struggled to touch. Put me back in. I mean, I need the playing time to get ready if you need me later in the playoffs.
And that is next week against the Tiger Cats, McMahon Stadium, Calgary. Marker's down. Flutie looking at second and a bunch, and he's down. The ball squirts loose. Noah Cantor was there, and now Don Wilson has the loose ball heading to the end zone. There's a marker down back at the line, and we'll see where the infraction happened. Referee Don Ellis will sort it out.
Offside, Toronto, the right end, 5-yard penalty, repeat the down.
Well, Jeff Cummins is listed as the right end, if that's who he's referring to, number 99. He was third round from the posse in the dispersal draft. That's how he became an Argonauts. So it'll be 2nd and 5, Calgary. 1:54 to go till halftime. Toronto on top, 10-6. And you can tell by the look in Doug Flutie's eyes that he wants to play a little football after watching for 8 weeks. And he wants to find out just how sound his elbow is after surgery in California. Flutie, Sapunjas, and that'll be a Stampeder first down. Maurice Kelly covering on Sapunjas, who's had a simply sensational year. 108 receptions, 1,602 yards, 12 touchdowns. Alan Pitts, who's resting this week but will be back next week. 100 receptions, 1,492 yards, and 11 touchdowns.
Well, you look, Alan Pitts has had over 100 catches in a season 4 times. Now this is the 2nd year that Dave Sapunjas has been able to do that.
First time 2 receivers on one team have both had over 100 or better.
In fact, he was the first Canadian, was Dave Sapunjas, to have over a 100 catch season.
After the penalty, it's 2nd and a bunch, and here's Pee Wee Smith wide open.
When I talked to Doug,
Joe Fuller, sorry, Lee.
When I had my conversation with Doug before the game, and that was the pass I asked him, I said, can you throw that? I really said, the wide side 20-yard out. And he said, I don't really want to throw one, but I'll tell you what, that completion he just made to Pee Wee Smith was kind of like that. He had to throw that on a rope about 20 yards in length, but in airtime, that thing went about 40. And that's the hardest Doug Flutie's thrown the ball here in the first half.
It'll go as a 28-yard reception, but as you say, Flutie threw it farther than that. Flutie lobs this one for Stewart, and he has a couple of yards, lost the ball, and it came right back to him. Stewart is marked for a 4-yard gain with 1:34 to go till halftime. Argos on top. It's 10-6. The Argos play out the string on a 3-14 season. Stampeders gear up for the playoffs and a run at the Grey Cup. Flutie on 2nd and 7. He comes to Vaughn wide open near side. And Vaughn dipsy doodles for a first down. He's out to the 55. Been there by Henry and Maurice Kelly. Vaughn needs 61 yards in this ball game to hit 1,000.
It'd be pretty nice to have 3 1,000-yard receivers on the same team. And, Doug Flutie's the kind of guy that was probably very aware of that coming into the game tonight and wanting to make sure Terry Vaughn got that.
Flutie has Sapunjas, his favorite target, and Sapunjas has another first down. Double nominee for the Stampeders is most valuable and top Canadian, Dave
Sapunjas. This is what Dave Sapunjas does, bring you inside. Donnie Wilson trying to stay with him here, but, Sapunjas is so good inside. Here, now, boom, pivot to the outside, and that's pretty tough to cover.
Stampeders inside the Argonaut 40. Swing pass to Stewart, swinging out of the backfield. Broke one tackle, comes up short of the first down as Cummins, number 99. Got to Stewart that time. You can tell he's enthused about being back on the football field, number 20, Doug Flutie.
Well, you feel like he's back in his office a little bit, don't you? You know, someplace that he's very comfortable with. He felt his way around in the first quarter, and, you know, now this drive closing out the second quarter kind of looks like the Flutie we've come to.
He really wants to punch into the end zone here, but Cummins wraps him up. And the quarterback sneak failed on second down. A little better than a yard to go.
Well, Jeff Cummins has had himself a pretty good first half. He's had a sack. Makes another play there on short yardage, and he's been around the football. And, you know, for a team that really has nothing to play for, I mean, you might as well go out and have some fun tonight. And Jeff Cummins is a guy that certainly knows how to go and have fun. I mean, in the warm-ups, he's always the guy laughing and teasing the players on the other team. And
he should get credit for a sack there, shouldn't he? He threw Flutie for a loss. It was second and about a yard. Now it's third and 3.
That's one of those
interesting
plays.
Isn't it?
No,
Yeah.
that's one of those plays they call a tackle for a loss.
I understand.
That's not a sack.
He got to the quarterback, though. Third down and 3. Martino is in again. I should say McLaughlin, number 13, in as the Stampeders call a timeout here with 16 seconds to go.
Flutie's probably going over to say, why don't you let me go for it here and have a little fun, and then, you know, let the other guys play in the second half.
At halftime, Commissioner Larry Smith with Darren Detition answering a few questions about the Canadian Football League as it stands right now. We're getting set for the playoffs, an exciting time, and of course, the Grey Cup in Regina. Must have been some sight when the Stampeders were there a couple of weeks ago, and 55,000 fans were in the stands at Taylor Field. I look forward to Grey Cup Sunday. Might be a little nippy, but Leaf, you're used to the cold.
Won't bother me much.
McLaughlin. And he's good. McLaughlin accounts for all the Stampeders scoring in the opening half. And he accounted for all the scoring last week in a win over the Saskatchewan Roughriders. It's a one-point ball game with 11 seconds to go. Rod Smith and Jamie Bone call the action from the University of Saskatchewan. TSN's 12th season of CIU football begins. The Huskies finalists of the 94 Vanier Cup, losing to Western. And returning quarterback Brent Schneider will try and lead the Huskies to their 5th conference championship in 8 years.
Seems like Brent Schneider's been there forever. How old is that guy now?
I'm not sure, but
boy, oh boy, you know, you talk about, you know, University of Saskatchewan, and an old buddy of ours, Rob Simchik, who was a fullback at the University of Saskatchewan, is now the head coach of the Okanagan Junior Sons, and they've got a big game coming up tomorrow in Kelowna at 2 o'clock, the Western Junior Championship, where they host the Regina Rams. Rob called me the other night to remind me and ask if I would give him a plug on the game tonight, and I said, you bet you.
Now, is Simchuk the playing coach with that junior team? Because I know he hung around a long time in CIU football.
He's about 40 years old now. He can't be playing anymore.
Anyway, look forward to that football game in the Okanagan tomorrow with the Rams out there. Flutie is back. He has 9 points on the board. The Argos have 10. That's the halftime story. And now it's time for the McDonald's halftime report with Darren Detition.
Welcome to McDonald's halftime. Joining me right now is the Commissioner in the Canadian Football League, Larry Smith. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. It's Unity Day here at the Sky Dome, and you're a native Montrealer, and I'm sure that you've got a few things to say on what's going to transpire on Monday.
Well, it's a very important vote for Quebecers, and of course, you're voting for the future of not only Quebec, but Canada. If I can say it in French, if you don't mind, le Canada s'est reconnu comme le plus beau pays du monde. Les gens du Québec, vous avez participé dans la croissance du Québec. Maintenant, c'est votre chance à voter pour le futur, pas juste pour le Québec, mais pour tout le monde. C'est une famille. Si un membre de famille sort, ça va affecter toute la famille. Bonne chance lundi.
I'm not bilingual, but I pretty much know what you said there. It doesn't seem like it, but 3 years ago, 3 short years ago, you took over as the commissioner of the Canadian Football League, and at that time you introduced your plan.
Well, the plan that we had...
It has been 3 years since CFL Commissioner Larry Smith unveiled his expansion plan. His aim, and that of most of the owners, was to have franchises all across the U.S.
I'm extremely excited about it. Believe me, it'll be extremely successful in the United States. It'll bring a whole new life to our league. I mean, we haven't expanded since 1954. It's time to move on. The rest of the world has kind of passed us by.
When you ask me the question, well, what about Regina or what about Winnipeg? They're going to fall apart because you got a bigger U.S. city than a smaller Canadian city. No, wrong. A low-cost producer, and if you produce for $10 in Regina and $10 in San Antonio, you're fine. The problem occurs is when you produce for $20 in San Antonio and you can't produce for $20 in Regina because your scale's out of whack. And what I'm trying to say simply is that we're going to run the league basis 25 to 27,000 fans in the stadium, not 40,000. You don't do your break even on 40,000. You do your break even on 25 to 27.
Unfortunately for Smith, 25 to 27,000 was not a realistic goal. And according to a recent newspaper report, all of the American and Canadian teams will lose money this season.
Well, Commissioner, I'm sure that you saw the report in the paper. Is that accurate? Will the 13 teams in the CFL this year lose close to $30 million?
Well, actually, those numbers, Darren, are estimates. We think some of the clubs are going to do considerably better. What it shows you is that we've made significant improvement in Canada, and some of the startup businesses in the States are losing big, and that's sometimes the way it goes.
Would this not be the most significant loss that the CFL has ever had, though, in terms of a financial sense?
Well, it would be the most significant, Darren, but don't forget we've had more teams than we've ever had before, and I think it's all relative. What it shows us is the importance of local marketing and some of our U.S. Partners controlling their costs.
So how many CFL teams this year will end up making money, Larry?
Well, I think we'll have probably teams in Edmonton, Saskatchewan. There may be a chance that Hamilton does well because they had some startup costs, but then we have some other clubs at just a marginal loss in Canada. Canada has improved markedly, but we still depend on the fans, Darren. We still depend on the corporate sponsors because we don't have the huge television revenue like they do in the States.
Let's talk a little bit about the United States and your plan for expansion. Last year we lost Sacramento and we lost Las Vegas, but you proceed again. When you started your expansion plan, did you expect it to progress better than it has at this point in time?
Well, Darren, we expected that there's be some bumps in the road because, like I said to everyone, I mean, we're going into the unknown. We have no experience in doing it, and we could have done all the marketing studies in the world, but it wouldn't have told you what you're actually going to experience. I think right now there's been some highs and some lows. The only thing that really irritates me this year, frankly, is the impatience of some of our new owners. I haven't been in too many businesses where you start complaining 3 months after you get your club.
So what happens now with the Gleibermans? You mentioned the owners. They moved out of Ottawa. They went down to Shreveport. They tried that for 2 years, and now there's talk of Norfolk. Will that be a reality?
Well, obviously they've had trouble in Shreveport. We're going to have a serious discussion with the Gleibermans in terms of the management philosophy because we do not want this to happen again. But on the other side, the Gleibermans have been good partners, and Bernie does a great job at the board level.
But you brought these guys into the league, and was it your inexperience in bringing franchises in? Because this had not been done since BC came into the league, and you got to go way back. Was it your inexperience at that point in time that brought the Gleibermans into the league, that's shown us the fluctuation? I know that I'm talking to the fans in the stands here, and they're saying, you know, I wish that they'd just get rid of the Gleibermans.
Well, I don't take any credit for bringing the Gleibermans in. I guess Bernie was on the committee that made the decision to hire me. But, you know, it's a case of the Gleibermans run a very important and successful construction business, but they haven't run a football business. And it's been a learning experience for Lonnie. So really, Darren, he's learning on the job.
Does it seem like it's been 3 years for you? When we were running
it's almost 4 years. And hey, did you see the young guy in that picture?
Are you going to be back next year as the commissioner of the CFL? Because we've heard rumors and rumblings that perhaps the Board of Governors is looking in a new direction, that the commissioner, Mr. Smith, may not be back. Will you be back, Larry?
Well, I would like to think that I will be, Darren. Right now, I'm going to want to get it to the end of the season. We got great playoff races coming up, and at the same time, our Grey Cup's going to be highly successful. We have a lot to do in the off season, but I'll decide that really in December and January.
Are we going to see expansion again this upcoming year?
Well, I think what we want to do now is consolidate what we have. If we do pick up a team, it would really be a result of repositioning the Las Vegas Posse franchise. But really, we have to consolidate what we have.
Now, we were asking the fans, because we're trying, this is always, the Canadian Football League has always been a fan-driven league. It's the fans who buy the tickets that come out to the games, who support the league, who make up the league, who give us as broadcasters jobs, and you as a commissioner a job as well. And we asked them a number of questions. The first one being, should the Canadian Football League make any rule changes to make the game more like U.S. football? Obviously, you see the results right there. Your reaction to that, sir?
Well, I'm very pleased to see the fans respond like that. I was hired to promote Canadian rules football. I feel very strongly about our product, and you know, my position is that people have to take what we're trying to sell in terms of our partners, and they have to make it work, because we do have something that's unique and different. So I'm 100% with the fans on that one.
So what do you do, though, when you've got owners down in the United States and you've got people like Pepper Rogers who are saying, well, let's tinker with the rules. We got to modify the rules. We've got to do this. We've got to do that. Possibly 4 downs. What do you do as a commissioner?
Very simple business approach, Darren, is that I think people have to earn respect and they have to earn their place. And, you know, somebody coming in and telling us 3 months or 2 months after that they start that we have to change things is not the issue. The issue is do your job locally and things will fall into place.
Another contentious issue that has been all over the CFL this year is the player import ratio. What's going to happen to the Canadian players? Should the import ratio remain the same? 52% say yes, 48% say no.
Well, what you have is almost a 50-50 split here, and I think what it means is that we need some modification. My position's been clear from the start. We want to keep the ratio. There's great Canadian ball players, but we have a quantity problem, not a quality problem. And as a result, I think if we modified it and rebalanced it to really coexist with our new reality, we'd be a lot better off.
Without a doubt, the biggest beef that I heard from general managers this year around the Canadian Football League, without a doubt, the Canadian ones, they always said we can't really compete because of the number of Canadians that we have to have. Here's another question. Should the American teams remain in the CFL? There has been some talk, Larry, around the league that upset with the way things have gone this year, the U.S. counterparts may not stick around with the CFL, that they might try and start their own league. They might go on their own way.
Well, you know, if somebody wants to do their own thing, Darren, they can do it because we're going to continue on. But I would like to think that we have enough credibility with these people that we're going to maintain our U.S. partners with us. And as the fans say, the new teams have given new interest to the Canadian Football League, have rejuvenated the Canadian division, as you can see by our increased attendance, and we should have U.S. teams.
The U.S.-based teams, they started off the season with their attendance, and you talked about that surprisingly well. Like, if you think, for example, Birmingham Barracudas, they had 31,000 in their opening game. Their final game of the regular season, they dropped down to 16,000. That was almost half. How do you go head-to-head in the United States with the National Football League on Sunday? You've got college ball on Saturday. How does the CFL change? Do you go to the weekday schedule and just completely forget about the weekends?
I think, Darren, we should probably have a mix of Thursday games and weekend games so that we take the pressure off Sunday and we create a new night for our games after Labor Day in the United States. But the real issue, Darren, is you cannot say to people the product needs to change and expect people to come out to the games.
No, and I agree with that. But you know what? I honestly don't believe that you can go head-to-head with the National Football League on Sunday or college ball on a Saturday.
Well,
because like us up north, they have grown up with their game, and we're trying to introduce a new product to them. But when it comes Saturday, it's college ball. When it comes Sunday, it's NFL.
I agree with you, but you have to understand there are markets like Baltimore where on a Sunday afternoon, the Baltimore Stallions last year played a very important game against Winnipeg. Dallas was playing Washington. We outdrew them on television, 2-1, 2-1, and they were just 50 miles down the road. But you're right, in Birmingham, with a new franchise, you have to respect the local traditions of high school and college. Put yourself on a Thursday night. So what I'm saying is we have to have a new mix.
So there'd be a variance. You'd let Baltimore, because Baltimore really was the exception to the rule down south in the standings on how things went. Early in the season, we saw lots of positives from the southern-based teams. We also seen a few negatives with the facilities, and I know that there's growing pains when you're trying to go in. We did the Memphis game last night. What do you do with that football stadium and what they're using as the Liberty Bowl? What do you do with that with the end zone? Because it was horrible for the offenses to come down, and then they've got the limited end zone and they can't do anything about it.
Well, the reality is that at the beginning of the season, for them to modify that stadium would have cost probably $6 to $8 million. Fred Smith was very nervous about it. The people in Memphis were up in arms because he had the NFL lease and felt that he was getting an advantageous situation without an NFL team. So we decided to go with what what we had. If we had to do it all over again, and I know some of you fans may get upset, but probably we should have gone with a shorter field with longer end zones. A little trivia point for the fans: in 1950s, Delormier Stadium in Montreal played with a 100-yard field because the field was too short. We have to have the end zones in the CFL because that's what makes the game exciting.
One final question for you when it comes to our poll. And this is a tough one, because when you took over as a commissioner of this league, it really was floundering. There were trouble spots all throughout the Canadian Football League, and it was having a very, very tough time. We didn't know if the CFL was going to survive from year to year, let alone franchise to franchise. Now you've stabilized things. We also wanted to ask the fans. The NFL has said by the year 2000 they want to be in Toronto. By the year 2000, will the CFL not only be surviving but thriving?
Well, let me put it this way. I was going to survive, and if we can do things right in the next couple of years with our finances, we should thrive. And I believe that we have a tremendous market in Toronto. We have to have a team that plays competitive football on the field. And with that, we will survive. And, you know, what it shows you is the heritage of the league, but also the tremendous fan support that's out there. We didn't see the people rise up to say how great Canada was until we hit a crisis. Maybe we'll see the same thing with the CFL.
We went through your business plan. It's been 3 years. You get any CEO who's running a major corporation, and it will take time. Now, you've altered your business plan. What is the league's new perspective as you head forward into the future?
Well, we started off, we wanted to stabilize the finances. We were technically bankrupt when we started. We did that. We wanted to expand to create new excitement in Canada. We did that. Now, we have to slow down the expansion and really try to establish a strong U.S. base, because if that doesn't happen for whatever reason, we will have to retrench into Canada. But I think we still have a good opportunity in the States, Darren. It's a case of execution and execution at the local level.
One final question for you. Will we be sitting here together again next year at this point in time, perhaps, talking about the league? Will you be the commissioner of the CFL?
Well, I would hope so. I'm going to make some decisions after this season, Darren. I would like to think about my family, like to think about my own health and what I want to do with my life. You know, the commissioner's job is a tough one. I don't think it's one you're going to spend 15 or 20 years in today's time. But at the same time, I've got one more year in my contract. We'll sort of take a quiet moment, because the old rule is never make a decision when you're tired.
Hey, will we see a U.S.-based commissioner and a northern-based commissioner?
I doubt it. I think what you're going to see is a continuation of the structure we have now. And if after my term, whenever that is, they want to select a U.S.-based commissioner, that will be their choice. But I would still think that there's a Canadian in there after me.
Well, we thank you very much for taking the time. It's been an extended interview. Some of the questions were not pleasant. They were extremely tough. We appreciate you being candid with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Hey, once again, the commissioner of the Canadian Football League, Larry Smith. Let's go now to John and Leif, who are ready to kick off the second half. Guys?
Interesting results in our phone poll tonight. When you look at the overall numbers there, Leif, on Canada night at Skydome, lots of flags here. Flutie is back.
John, I think as you look back at the questions and should the CFL make any rule changes, a resounding 91% indicated that no, there shouldn't be any rule changes. And do you think the import ratio should stay the same? That was about 50-50, and to me that's not surprising. What I really liked in that phone poll was, should the American teams remain in the CFL? It was almost 70%, and I think that is quite an endorsement that it has been fun for the Canadian cities to see new teams come there and see new players, new guys like Joe Horn and Marcus Grant, receiver in Birmingham. And so that part of the poll I thought was very encouraging.
Here are the numbers at the half. It's a 1-point lead for the Argonauts as Austin trots back onto the field. Net yards for the Stampeders, 263 compared to 248 for the Argos. One turnover going each way. Time of possession favored the Stamps by 3 minutes and 10 seconds. Argos have their hands on the football. As the second half gets underway, Austin swings it out of the backfield for Ford. And he's a tough guy to bring down, but he only grabs a couple of yards. Alondra Johnson up to help out with a tackle. And really, it was Gerald Vaughn, number 38, putting the stop on Dwayne Ford that time. Well, Dave Ritchie and the BC Lions host the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And the Roughriders have a shot at the playoffs. If they beat Ritchie and the Lions tomorrow, Saskatchewan will get into the playoffs.
Yeah, you and I will go out there and join our partner Glenn Suter, and the three of us will bring that game to you tomorrow night. The Saskatchewan Roughriders with a chance to qualify for the playoff if they can beat the BC Lions.
Morreale is stopped well short of a first down on the far side. Saskatchewan Roughriders and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are battling on this final week of the regular season for a shot at the Baltimore Colts in the North Division wild card spot. So if the Roughriders win tomorrow, they'll go on to meet the Baltimore Stallions. If Saskatchewan and Winnipeg both win their final games of the season, the Roughriders still have the playoff spot. This is Coleman for the Stampeders. Turns the corner, has a great burst of speed and one guy to beat as Coleman takes off. Can he be caught from behind? Marvin Coleman, and the beat on him is drawn in by Tim Trishan. Number 28, who finally caught up to Marvin Coleman, happens to be an old teammate. A great return by Marvin Coleman and the Stampeders special teams as Calgary set up. Marvin Coleman's 78-yard punt return has the Stampeders set up just outside the 15. It's Sean Moore back at quarterback for Calgary, throwing on the run and on target. Far side for Vince Danielson, number 88. He's inside the 10.
CFL Live, brought to you in part by Dodge Trucks, Canada's truck stop.
Stampeders looking at 2nd and 2. 4 possessions inside the 35. 1 turnover, 3 field goals. The Stampeders look to hit the end zone for the first time at Skydome tonight. Tony Stewart, and we'll see where they spot the ball. It should be a first down from a vantage point here. Maybe a half a yard short. Looking at Dave Sapunjas' hands down there and the indication to the bench.
You know, the Stampeders would love to score a touchdown here. They've just gone 6 quarters now without scoring a touchdown. They, of course, beat Saskatchewan 18-15 on 6 Mark McLaughlin field goals.
Mark McLaughlin beat the Rough Riders.
Yeah, 3 more in the first half, so 9 field goals and no touchdowns in 6 quarters.
Third down, less than a yard to go, and it's Flutie himself this time. No question about the third down gamble as Flutie has the first down.
You know, John, we talked about this, the Stampeders with a chance to go 16-2, but you know what? Any team that wins 15 or more games is really not the greatest thing to have happen to you.
Well, not if you're looking at odds.
No, you know, there has been a true jinx attached to when you win 15 games or more. There you see Calgary's done it twice, and look what it got them. And of course, Edmonton did it back in '89 when they went 16-2. And we're not able to win the Western Finals, so, you know, regardless if Calgary wins tonight or not, they still have 15 wins and will fall into that most dubious category.
Eskimos are the only team in the CFL to finish the season with a 16-2 record. Obviously, with the 18-game schedule, Stampeders have an opportunity tonight. They're at 15-2 and trailing by a point to the Argos. First down and goal to go, Stampeders. Moore at the controls again, looks to the end zone. And he's got the touchdown. Pee-wee Smith has the touchdown in front of Joe Miro.
Dan Murphy took a shot at him, and I don't blame the Stampeders. This is a close-knit group. And Murphy took a shot at one of the most popular players on that Stampeder team.
That was well after the touchdown had counted. And Dan Murphy is surrounded by Stampeders down there. Gets a little help from Cummins, but all the officials have a flag on the turf right now.
I'll be honest, I don't blame the Stampeders. Dan Murphy took a shot well after the touchdown catch, and you're going to see it. There's the touchdown here. Hey, plays over, and then boom. I mean, that's intent to injure. I mean, you know, you're looking at, well, maybe the guy's trying to knock the ball loose, and it's not a touchdown, but hey, that's a touchdown. It's over. It's over. Look how many steps. I mean, that's it. And then boom, you go for the head. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't know who the first Stampeder was that got there, but I don't blame him.
Dan Murphy came over from The Ottawa Rough Riders, after spending 1994 with the Eskimos in Edmonton.
I'll tell you what, Pee Wee Smith. See, he's just looking at the scoreboard right now. He just saw the hit.
No wonder it hurts. He's now seeing what happened. And Murphy's trying to explain that he did nothing wrong, I would think.
If I'm Murphy, I put the helmet back on here just in case somebody gets riled again.
He's not wearing lipstick, Murphy.
Somebody got a shot in there, probably.
Now let's sort everything out with head referee Don Ellis.
Major foul, unnecessary roughness, Calgary number 25. Major foul, unnecessary roughness, Toronto number 70. Penalties offset, will kick the convert.
So Murphy doesn't even get a penalty out of all of this.
Well, they're saying Sopunjus was involved in something, and Sheldon Benoit, and they're not even talking about Dan Murphy down there. Don Ellis said number 70, which is Benoit, not 17.
You know, to me,
Murphy.
John, there's a fine line. You know, like if you put the helmet through and you're trying to knock the ball loose, you know, and it's a little late in the end zone, you're trying to knock the ball loose. That's one thing. But, I mean, Dan Murphy, make no mistake, went head hunting. And that's what the Stampeders objected to, and I don't blame them. And I stand by that remark.
Stampeders have their first touchdown of the night. Pee Wee Smith has his third on the season.
It's going to be a long rest of the game for Dan Murphy, I'll tell you that. They're going to go after him.
Hey, thanks very much, guys. You know what? This gentleman beside me knows lots about hits. Former Toronto Argo great, and you were honored at halftime. Don Moen, I don't know if the team would be in their current position if they had you in the middle again.
They may be worse.
Worse than 3 and 14?
You never know. I'd like to think that I had something to do with that, but you know, there was a lot of good players out there, and it was just one of those years. It was tough to watch because I'm still a huge fan of the Argos, huge fan of the CFL, but to see the atmosphere here tonight and the guys are putting on a real spirited effort, I think this leaves a nice taste in the mouth of the Toronto fans.
You know what? You had a great career in the Canadian Football League. When you look at the CFL now and you look ahead to its future, are you optimistic about the league?
I am optimistic, and I've always been a glass half full kind of guy. There's some work that has to be done. I think here in Toronto it's really important that the product improves. I think that they made some great strides as far as the marketing of this team, and had they been able to carry it over like everybody thought they were going to be able to on the field, you would have seen crowds like this and excitement all year long. So next year is truly going to be critical. They have to put product on the field.
This is a contentious issue. Give us your thoughts on the player ratio.
Well, I'm pretty opinionated on that, and I look at the Calgary Stampeders, who seem to be pretty competitive, and you know, it's an issue, and it's an issue that we're going to have to look at. But I feel very strongly that Canadian players can compete in this league, and until somebody shows me different, I'll stand by it.
One of the players that competed for a long time and at a great level, Don Moen, truly a CFL superstar. Let's go back up to the booth.
Dan Murphy active on this return as well. Wanted to hit someone. Picked on Pierce down there.
Picked on Mark Pierce, the defensive lineman, and you know, I'll tell you, he knows right now he's going to be a marked man for the rest of this game. And you know what you do when you're the marked man is you become maybe even more aggressive, so you take care of yourself.
First down for Austin and the Argos. He has Clemens coming out of the backfield for a couple of yards. And here we go. Another fracas down there. This is Pope in the middle of things, I do believe.
That's Carl Golder throwing the left hooks down there. This game's going to get ugly because it means nothing. And now all of a sudden, Murphy started with the cheap shot. Now this is going to be big. There goes Coulter. Another right hook to the head of Coleman. Well, Golder's gone. It'll be shower time for him. And now Pope's going to get up. He's going to... Referees are going to have fun for the rest of this game.
Giaskis in the middle of things down there.
But Don Ellis has to take control right now and just get rid of the guys that want to do this. Get rid of them right now and have a little meeting with both teams and say, look, you guys want to do it? I'll throw you all out.
4 plays, 17 yards. Set up on the great return by Coleman. It took 2:32. And the touchdown toss from Moore to Smith from 7 yards away.
Well, you go back and see if you can see what started all this. And Pope's down on the ground with pinball. Now he's on the bottom. See what he does. That little
elbow to the pinball.
Yeah, pinball said something. You know, hey, I don't blame Carl Calder right there. You gotta defend your buddy. But hey, it's up to Don Ellis right now. He can stop all this stuff easily. He said, Calder, you're gone. Pope, you're gone. And then go and have a meeting with the benches, both teams on the field, and Don Ellis, he can take control of this one right now, and he can stop all the garbage.
Right now, it's foot brawl out there. Mike Clemens on the return. He has 27 rushing yards, 72 yards in returns, 99 total yards to add to his all-purpose total here tonight.
Well, you know, you look at Clemens, he had a 55-yard lead on Mike Pringle in that category.
Major foul, disqualification, Toronto number 57, after the play, is second down.
So Calder's the only player thrown out of the ball game. And that'll mean Scott Douglas will see some duty.
Well, Mike Clements doesn't usually say too much, and he's been taken back to the huddle by Paul Mazzotti.
There we can see what the infraction is on Coulter well after the play.
Here he is right there. That's called Coulter. And look, he's looking down. Boom, see the elbow there right in the bush. And then that's enough. Boom. He says, you know, okay, you want to hit the littlest guy in our team?
Couple of lefts in there, and I'm not so sure he didn't lead with a knee.
I tell you, you know, like, you're not going to hurt Marvin Pope, but you know what? Makes you feel good.
Well, an early shower for Carl Coulter.
I think the coaches are probably going to say to the players right now, and I know Wally Buono and Bob Abilovich, they want to play this game. They want to have a good finish to this game, and I have a feeling they're going to talk to their players. Wally Buono right now, in fact, has got Marvin Pope beside him, and you know, not that he's not even looking straight at him, but I know he's telling them, hey, look, let's finish this game nicely. There, you know, Pope's just to his right.
Bob Obilovich, far side, trying to salvage a little bit of pride out of this season. I thought that first half played by the Argos was the best we've seen an Argo football team play in a long time during this season, 1995. They had the lead, but the Stampeders have bounced back to lead it now at 16-10. Here's Austin, second, and a whole bunch necessary. And running underneath it is Mazzotti. He could be gone. Knox in pursuit, drags him down at the 15. 81 yards.
Paul Mazzotti really fooled Al Jordan. He saw the ball was hanging up and he slowed down. And then at the last second, he gave it that little burst and was able to get away from Jordan. But he really fooled Jordan. That ball was underthrown, and you know, he made Jordan think the ball wasn't even coming his way. That was a great acting job by Paul Mazzotti, and heck of a catch.
That's the longest completed pass by the Argonauts this season. 81 yards to Mazzotti, setting Toronto up inside the 15. Austin trying to find Climby. It's picked off again. That's two passes intended for Climby, intercepted. Stampeders are still rolling on this as Coleman races down the field and heads to the end zone, but there are markers all over the field.
We got interceptions, we got fights away from the play, and laterals. I mean, you're talking about a lot of stuff happening on one play here.
Vaughn had the interception and flipped it to Coleman. Coleman took off, and we'll have to check the infraction because there were markers, I think, even before Coleman got the ball.
For the last game of the regular season, they're making it tough on Don Ellis. You might see a lot of that where he punches the air, personal foul.
Yeah, personal foul, rough play down there again.
You might see a few more of those in the second half here. Looked like Gerald Vaughn jammed Jock Climby, and I think he's going to get called on the interference.
Illegal contact on an eligible receiver. Calgary number 38. Major foul, face mask. Toronto number 34. Repeat first down.
So 38 is Gerald Vaughn for the Stampeders. 34 is Dwayne Ford for the Argonauts. Net result, Toronto will hang out of the ball.
Well, there's the interception, but he pushed, made that illegal contact before he made the interception.
Argos will be first down and 15 to go. At the 18, this is the pinball. Mike Clemens, good head of speed, down to the 5. Gotta love the little guy. Matt Finley made the stop, 37. Pinball 5 yards away from the end zone.
We watch Pierre Bercheville. Watch him come around that corner. That's a lot of beef sealing off to the inside. Pinball reads it perfectly, gets the cutback, and this is well as I've seen Toronto run the ball all season, and this is against a defense that's #1 against the run. What gives here?
It's a hard game to figure out.
Is there full moon out there tonight or what?
I don't know. The lid's closed on this place. Second down is pinball. Needed a couple for a first down and should have it. No markers down. The Argos will get a couple of cracks at it from about the 2-yard line.
It's funny, the first Toronto touchdown tonight by Rob Grifo, Toronto got a second chance on an offside penalty, and now on the illegal contacting on Gerald Vaughn, looks like they might get their second good shot at a touchdown.
Well, give it to pinball here and see if he can score his 50th CFL touchdown. First down, goal to go, and there's pinball Clemens. He's into the end zone. Seventh touchdown on the season for Mike Clemens and his 50th career major as an Argonaut.
What you have to love about this play is look at Alondra Johnson. He's the most valuable defensive player, and pinball just hits in and is able to second effort bounce off. And you have to appreciate when a little guy like Pinball Clemens can do this. But hey, he takes on the hit, slides off, and scores the touchdown.
After the touchdown, Joe Burgos was called for objectionable conduct. Mazzotti puts it down and Baker puts it up. The Argos are back on top of the Calgary Stampeders. Hero of the moment, Mike Clemens has 50 CFL touchdowns. '69-yard scoring drive has the Argos back on top of the Calgary Stampeders. Mike Clemens finished it off with a 2-yard rush. He was a big part of the entire drive, including the kick return. Argos on top by a point, 17-16.
Yeah, and I guess after that little elbow by Marvin Pope to the jaw, Mike Clemens feels a little better about doing it to the Stampeders with that touchdown.
Terry Vaughn returning for Calgary. He has a little room to this side, and he's grabbed from behind by Cummins. Or rather, Noah Cantor, I think. Hamilton Tiger Cats get the privilege of playing the Stampeders as the playoffs begin in Calgary next weekend. And on the line from his home in Grimsby, offensive line coach John Salavantis, who's watching the game with us now. Can you beat these Stampeders, John?
Yeah, I think we can. I think it's going to be a challenge, but I think we can.
Well, John, how do you feel you can beat the Stampeders? I mean, on paper, let's be honest, this is a game that most people would think Calgary should win, and all of a sudden, obviously you feel like you can win the game. But what are you going to have to do to beat this club?
Well, I think, first of all, Leif, you have to be able to move the ball offensively. They have a very good defensive team. When you look at them offensively, everybody talks about Calgary being such a great offensive team. They're a super defensive team. And I think what we have to do is find ways to move the ball. And I think tonight, Toronto is showing that they can move the ball against the Calgary defense.
John, your club has had a real peak and valley type of season. You know, at midpoint, I felt like, you know, you maybe could challenge in the top third of the Northern Division, and all of a sudden the team really went into the tank for a few games. Is this the kind of team that can all of a sudden turn it on in the playoffs and take a run at it?
No, I think what you're referring to, Leaf, is whether we have veteran status, whether we have enough veterans who could turn it up during the playoff schedule. No, I don't think we have that kind of a team, but I do think we have a team who is capable, or which is capable, of playing very, very well at any given week.
83. John, you've been pretty sure it's the Calgary Stampeders on your playoff date card for some time. Now, I take it that you have spent a lot of time studying the possibilities for your offense against this Stampeder defense. Are there any little secrets you can share?
Well, there are no secrets that we can share, John, but at the same time, I'll tell you this, we have spent some time on the Calgary defensive unit and have broken down a lot of film and looked at them extensively. And it's not to say that we're overlooking Baltimore. That's not the case at all. But we are looking forward to going to Calgary.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight. Enjoy the rest of this one. Have a good time in Baltimore and a good time in Calgary.
Yeah, we will. Thank you, John.
John Sullivan is the offensive line coach of the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Looking in on this one tonight, watching the Stampeders, who the Tiger Cats will meet next week. On first down, there's early movement from the Stampeders, and a penalty marker is down, so let's bring in Darren again.
Hey, thanks very much, John. I got to tell you, though, when that melee was going on the field and Don Moen was standing beside me, he was looking a little antsy and he was kind of laughing. I thought for a second or two he might just crack me. For 20 years, this guy on my right now has been shooting photos of the Canadian Football League. John Sokolowski joins us now. Let's talk about the CFL a little bit. John, what do you think as a fan, as a man who's employed by the league and by the game itself, what do you think is going to happen down the road? Do you think you're going to still have work here?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Canadian teams will probably get stronger in the long run. Some of the U.S. teams, it's hard to say what will happen to those. You know, they've got to give it a little more of a chance. I think having one season under their belt and, you know, being able to go into a full winter now and market the game, I think those teams might pick up.
What about the city of Toronto itself and the Argonauts?
I think in this city, a lot of it, a lot of the negativity actually stems from some of the media comments that Vermeer made. I find a lot of the media, I don't think are spend the time to learn more about the game itself, the team here, that you see in some of the Western cities or even some in some, you know, the American cities that you see in the NFL.
But not TSN.
No, not you guys.
Have you ever had a photo? Like I said, you've been taking pictures for 20 years. Do you ever get a shot of Leif Pettersson?
Yeah, I've got a couple of him actually dropping the ball.
Those are hard to come by. Sticky fingers, you didn't drop many, did you?
Oh, I'll tell you what, he must have been shooting some other 70 when he could have been shooting me. I mean, I liked him when this interview started. Maybe he was thinking of 81, right?
He might have been thinking of 81. And who might that have been in your era? I can't remember back to 81. Argos have slowly plotted out across midfield for a first down at the Stampeder 54. 3:46 to go in the third quarter as Austin operates from the shotgun. Now steps up and looks for a receiver far side. Masadi was the intended receiver in coverage over there by Coleman, number 17.
Once again, I think you're going to get one of these illegal contacting penalties. McClanahan on Pinball Clemens. Penalties actually something usually doesn't hurt Stampeders. Hurting them tonight.
Illegal contact on an eligible receiver. Calgary number 41. First down.
It is Anthony McClanahan, nominated as the Stampeder Rookie of the Year, playing his 11th game tonight. 7 sacks, 35 tackles, 9 on special teams. He's had a great rookie season. Our phone poll tonight. It's some interesting response to some of the questions. Should the CFL make rule changes? 91% say no. Will the CFL survive? 69% say yes. Survive into the year 2000. And the phone line is still open in case you'd like to add your opinion to our total. Again, the number 1-900-870-2299. Another interesting response. Should American teams remain in the CFL? Almost 70% thought that was a positive thing and said yes.
That's the one that I found interesting. And I mean, let's put this in perspective. I mean, I think it's CFL fans that are probably calling into this poll, and is that a distorted picture? I'm not so sure, but hey, if CFL fans, they've said that they like seeing those American teams.
No flag down. Morreale couldn't get over to make the catch. Or rather, Creepo with Gerald Vaughn covering. And it'll be third down and a kicking situation for the Argos with Baker in. Update on Mike Clemens, 123 yards so far tonight, 2,537 all-purpose yards. And Mike Pringle of Baltimore has 178 yards to catch up in his final game against the Tiger Cats if Clemens doesn't get a yard tonight, another yard tonight.
And I don't know how much Mike Pringle is going to play in that game, and I don't think he really cares about that all-purpose yard total. I don't think Mike Pringle's really worrying about that too much.
Terry Baker nails a long one. The Argos have a 4-point lead. Bobo Bilovich has won only one football game since taking over from Mike Farragelli as head coach of the Argonauts for the third time. One win in '95. He took over August the 28th for his third stint as the head man in Toronto. Argos playing fairly decent football tonight. 2:13 to go, third quarter. Sean Moore at quarterback for the Stampeders, and this is Stewart trying to turn the corner. Successfully doing so, and he's out across the 40. Sardo in to make the tackle, number 38. TSN will carry first round action from the Kanapali Golf Club in Hawaii. Defending champion Bob Murphy will be there for the final round, live at 1:30. First and final round coverage of that from Hawaii. 2nd and 5, Stampeders. Moore can't find a target, takes off, he'll have a first down. Sean Moore, stopped by Maurice Kelly. Moore is playing his first game as a member of the Calgary Stampeders. He's been dressed for a couple. First time he's seen action. He began the year in Ottawa, spent a little time in Winnipeg, and ended up in Calgary when Flutie went down and backed up Garcia a while. Flutie started the game. He was impressive. Did not engineer a scoring or a touchdown drive, but he moved the Stampeders and threw the ball fairly effectively. Tony Stewart, and a solid run by Stewart off the right side behind Drysdale and Pandelitis. Stampeders atop the North Division standings, and they have been from the very start of the season. Eskimos finish in second spot and will host the BC Lions in round 1 of the playoffs. And Hamilton heads to Calgary, as you heard a few moments ago. Saskatchewan and Winnipeg still battling it out for the wild card spot against Baltimore. It'll go down to the final weekend of the season. Stewart's has the first down and lots to spare as a marker flies. Some plunges adding a block in there, and Don Wilson, the tackle for the Argos. This one will likely come back. The indication holding against Calgary. Nine seconds to go in the third quarter now.
Holding. Calgary number 64. Repeat second down.
That'll be Bruce Beaton. Stampeder offensive line has allowed the fewest sacks in the CFL during the regular season, just 29.
You look at Bruce Beaton, and he's done quite a job replacing Bruce Covington, an all-Canadian who went down with arm problems earlier in the year, and Bruce Beaton was asked to fill some very large shoes, and I think for the most part they've been pretty happy with his play.
Sean Moore in big-time trouble, surrounded by Argos, and Joe Sardo got there first. Third sack of the year for Sardo.
That's the end of the third quarter, and following tonight's game, the TSN Turning Point will be brought to you by the new Sony Handycam. Fourth quarter about to begin. Toronto on top of Calgary, 20-6. Head coach of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, Ray Yock, who will take on the BC Lions tomorrow night live on TSN with a shot at a playoff spot against the Baltimore Stallions. Ray, looking at your team last 2 weeks against the Calgary Stampeders, 1 win, and I thought you had a pretty good opportunity last Sunday right in Calgary to make it 2 wins in a row. You have a playoff spot wrapped up.
Well, we did, and unfortunately we didn't quite put it together at the end there, but that happens sometimes. But certainly our players are playing hard, and if they'll go out and play with the same heart tomorrow, we should have a chance to win that one.
Now, Ray, at the beginning of the season, I was asked to do some predictions, and I said Saskatchewan's going to be the wild card team in the Northern Division. They're going to go down and play in the Southern Division in the U.S., beat everybody down there, and come back and play in the Grey Cup in Regina. So now don't let me down.
I like your attitude, Lee. We hope it works out that way.
Watch along with us here, Ray, for a minute or two. We'll throw another couple of questions at you out there in Vancouver.
Okay, all right. Looks like the pinball's trying like crazy, isn't he?
Well, you know, we said earlier in the game, wouldn't it be nice, and Toronto's had a horrible year, if he could win that all-purpose title, and couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Yeah,
I think you'd agree with that.
Oh, no doubt about it. Gosh, he's just 120%er. Great with people, and, you know, just a great guy. So it shows on the field the way his attitude is, the way he plays.
Ray, it seems to us that your Rough Riders are playing their best football of the season right now in the last 3 or 4 weeks. What has been the difference on this football team? Well, looking back to the Calgary win, which really seemed to solidify that belief.
Well, you know, I think that gave us some confidence. So certainly, I think we've been playing fairly well all season. Certainly, we didn't have our stuff together earlier in the year, and we had to make a few adjustments, and we made some adjustments. I think they've helped our team and our players. The thing right now is that we got to put some back-to-back wins together. That's all there is to it. And, you know, I think we're playing hard. Our guys have played hard all season. I think it's a credit to them.
Decline, no yards. Calgary number 44, that is accepted. First down.
You know, Ray, I have to ask you the question that I'm sure a lot of CFL fans want to know, and that decision to make the switch at kicker last week with Paul McCallum over Dave Ridgway. Paul McCallum coming through with 5 field goals in that game, although it was a loss. Made the decision look pretty good.
Well, I mean, we think we got 2 good kickers. You know, Dave's been a great kicker in Saskatchewan, done a great job. And we just had an opportunity to get a look at Paul, and we think he could be a great kicker, too. And so, you know, I mean, it's not a situation just that we want to just look at Paul. Certainly did a great job.
Who's going to kick tomorrow?
Ray, what do you think of that play? Pinball to Mazzotti.
Yeah, that's pretty good. They've been pulling out all the stops. They've had quite a few of those. Old Creefo's got some good catches, too.
Well, what do you see here, Ray, while you're looking at the replay?
Yeah, that's... he makes a good fake here. The pinball makes... I hope he gets credit for this yardage. Does he get credit for throwing yardage? I guess not.
I guess Nick doesn't fit into all purpose.
Too bad. Well, Mazzotti gets the credit for the yardage, I guess. That's the way that goes.
No bigger smile in the Canadian Football League as Clemens has the Argonauts set up just outside the Stampeder 20-yard line at the 22. First down, Toronto.
Yeah, he looks like he's going after Austin's job.
Austin was on target. Creepo couldn't make the catch.
Ray, who is going to handle the kicking tomorrow?
Paul will be kicking again.
Okay, good
job.
Yeah,
he did a great job, and he'll be kicking again. We'll go from there.
Well, listen, we'll look forward to seeing you out there. I know it's going to be a great game. The Saskatchewan Roughriders and the BC Lions tomorrow night, 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 on the coast. Ray Yock, Saskatchewan Roughriders looking for a playoff spot.
And there you are on TV, Ray. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Thanks
it's a nice
for the call.
snapshot of you.
Okay, we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Okay, guys. Injured player far side being attended to. That's Rob Creefo. Let's bring in Darren Detition for a quick moment.
You know, it's always been a fan-based league, the Canadian Football League. It's the people in the stands that drive this league, and I'm sitting just behind the Calgary Stampeders bench. We were talking about the CFL, talking about the Toronto Argonauts. I'll just ask you gentlemen quickly, your thoughts on the U.S.-based teams, and do you think the league will be around come the year 2000?
I think it'll be around. I think they had to add the American teams to keep it alive. I think without them, it probably would have died. I think it's given the CFL a resurgence.
Sir, your thoughts? You brought your family to the game. You're sitting here with your daughter and such.
Oh,
I think as long as they keep the rules the same, the Canadian game, expand in the States and try and get some American TV coverage maybe. I don't know. They got to sell it to them. See what happens.
And what about you? Do you think that the Canadian Football League will be around come the year 2000? Will you be coming to games in the year 2000 and still supporting the CFL if it's here?
I like the CFL, yeah. It's a great game, but they got to keep the rules the same. If they go with the 4 downs, I think it'll spoil the game. Go head-to-head with the NFL. But if they keep the CFL, Canadian rules, yeah, it's a great game. It's a lot faster. I like it.
John and Leif, back to you guys.
Austin went for the bundle and just missed.
You know, John, I like the one fan's remark about they need more TV exposure with the U.S.-based teams, and what that means a lot of times is just some games back into those local markets so people can see what the game is all about. It's very hard to sell a team down there when nobody really knows the heritage or gets to see any games. So I'm sure that's something that the commissioner and the governors are going to have to deal with the U.S.-based teams. How can they get some sort of local TV package down there to enhance their marketing plans?
Baker is wide for a single point just after Austin slid one off the goalpost. So Baker nailed a long one a few moments ago from 49. Missed that one. Argos continue to lead. Well, a Canada Night celebration. If you wore a flag or a bunny suit, you got in here free tonight. I think I would have just worn the flag.
Yeah, that takes a little courage right there. Anyway.
Stampeders are not leading the Toronto Argonauts. That's the big story here tonight. This has been the best team in the CFL all season long, looking a little bored and yawning on the bench there at Skydome tonight.
Well, they have played like that. I mean, this is not the normal intensity-filled Stampeder team that we've seen earlier in the season. I think it looks like they're just thinking, hey, let's get through this one, try not to get any injuries, and get ready for our game against Hamilton next weekend.
Still a lot of time left, and the Stampeders have lots of opportunities. Moore for Vaughn in front of Tommy Henry, number 6. It'll be enough for a first down. No markers anywhere on the field. Darren?
Hey, thanks very much, guys. Down on the football field tonight, playing for the Calgary Stampeders, is Kevin Reed. He joined now by his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Reed. We've been going through through tonight's telecast, asking the folks at home, asking the people here in the Skydome what they thought about the Canadian Football League, the player-import ratio. I mean, here's a Canadian boy who makes good. He goes to school, a university product here in Canada, and he's playing in the CFL. I asked you, Mrs. Reed, you said your son loves it. Express for us what it means for you to come to the Skydome tonight and to watch your son playing in the CFL.
It's a thrill. It's lovely. It's nice for him to recognize a dream that he's always hoped to do, and it's just great to see him recognize his hope.
I'm sure, Mr. Reed, you echo those same sentiments.
Yeah, well, we've always been very proud of Kevin, and it's nice to see young people achieve goals, and he's worked very hard, and I think from our standpoint, watching the Canadian Football League, we've been big supporters for years, and it's just a great game, and I think it needs to be revitalized by Canadians playing the game, not because they're legislated to play, but because they're given the coaching at this level, and they're given the opportunity to succeed.
Obviously, it's an issue that's close to your hearts. We talk about the Canadian player ratio. I would assume that you are in favor of it and keeping it the way it stands so we have our Canadian content out there.
Honestly, no, I'm not. No,
You say let them go on an equal footing and an equal scale?
No, I think there has to be a recognition that this league is unique from the NFL, certainly. And I think we have to recognize that we have student athletes. These young men all do well in university. They all pass Canadian universities and get good degrees. The point is they need a little bit of extra coaching at this level, but athletically, I don't think there's a great deal of difference between good Canadians and good Americans. I think we just need to give them the environment where they can get good coaching. They don't get a lot of good coaching in their developmental years, but I think they can make the difference up very quickly. Dave Sapunjas, to me, is a perfect example. He admits it. He wouldn't be in this league had he not been given a couple of years to develop, and look at him now.
I think he got pretty good coaching at home, too. It's a pleasure talking to you. I hope you enjoy the football game. Thanks for joining us.
All right. And Sean Moore
finds another Canadian, Dave Sapunjas. Out of Western inside the 30-yard line as the Stampeder drive continues.
But, John, you look at all the first-round draft picks that the Stampeders have had over the years and how all of them have stuck with the club. I mean, that is an impressive list, to say the least. And Kevin Reed, of course, the latest, had a terrific career at the University of Guelph, and now doing his apprenticeship as a Vince Danielson did, as a David Sapunjas did. Kind of sit on the bench, learn the system, and at some point in time, hope to get your chance.
Stampeders first down. This is Sean Moore looking into the middle and looking for Sapunjas. Whoa, markers everywhere. Marcelo Simmons had his hands up in the air trying to suggest that he hadn't been a little too close to the Calgary receiver, but that seems to be what the call will be.
That's a tough call for Marcelo Simmons. You know, the ball was so late getting there to Sapunjas, he just couldn't help make the contact.
Deliberate forward pass interference. Toronto number 9, first down.
See, the ball should be there now, and it's not. And, you know, Marcelo Simmons just can't help himself. Now, if that had been Garcia or Doug Flutie, the ball might have been there, and that hit would have been perfectly timed. But, you know, that's what happens to a defensive back sometimes when the 13 quarterback's in there. You just can't help yourself creating that contact.
9:49 to go, fourth quarter. Stampeders first down. Moore to the end zone. Touchdown. Vince Danielson, 6th touchdown catch of the season. Sean Moore's 2nd touchdown toss of the night. Incredible depth on this Calgary Stampeder team. Talking about Reed a moment ago, and this is Danielson getting a chance to play with Pitts on the sidelines tonight.
Yeah, Vince Danielson, he had to wait for his chance to get some playing time, and, you know, now he's been the 5th receiver. Now he gets to start tonight because Pitts is hurt. I'll tell you what, he's made the most of his apprenticeship, and now he's a full-fledged, bona fide receiver.
He has over 200 yards receiving on the season. Stampeders look for a 2-point convert here. And play is whistled down.
Timeout, Calgary.
Sean Moore will check it over at the bench. Check over play selection. He's tossed 2 touchdowns tonight. First 2 as a Calgary Stampeder. And Wally Buono is finding out a little something about Sean Moore before these playoffs are done, going into them with Garcia and Flutie slightly shaken up, to say the least. Flutie with the elbow, Garcia with the ankle. He might need Sean Moore a time or two to get to the Grey Cup. What do you think?
I think that's a good point, and what a terrific opportunity to have a look at him tonight. Tell you what, on that touchdown throw to Vince Danielson, I mean, Sean Moore did a nice job looking to his right to really freeze the middle safety, Dan Murphy, and then, you know, when he came back and he was able to get to Danielson, Murphy was he was just out of the middle and couldn't help out on Joe Fuller on his coverage. So I think that showed John Huffnagel and Wally Buono something right there on that touchdown throw.
Moore going for 2, and he hit the post at the other end. Austin rang one off at the other end moments ago. Sean Moore misses on the 2-point convert.
Welcome back to Skydome. Just a few moments ago, we were talking to Mr. and Mrs. Reed. Their son plays for the Calgary Stampeders. He's a Canadian product. I'm joined now by Mr. and Mr. Sapunjas. Your son's having a fantastic year again. He leads the Canadian Football League in receptions going into tonight's action. Now, during the course of the contest, we've been going around and we've been talking to the fans. This is obviously an issue that's very, very close to your heart. We're talking about the CFL, and one of the questions that we had posed is, do you think the CFL will be around come the year 2000? Mr. Sapunjas, what do you think is the fate of this league?
Well, I certainly hope it's around till the year 2000, and hopefully the Canadian content will always be maintained, particularly in Canada. I know it's rough to do in the U.S., but the Canadian players can certainly hold their own, given the opportunity. I know the CFL has struggled financially, and it probably will for the foreseeable future, but it's been around, I don't know, 80 or 90 years.
What about you, Mrs. Sapunjas? You come to the games, you watch your son play when he's in Toronto here. You're obviously a CFL football fan. It must give you a great deal of pleasure to come and watch your son play. And he's a Canadian product. I mean, here's the make good story. Here's the boy who does well, and he's not only playing in the CFL, but excelling.
Well, I think it's wonderful, and I think tonight, too, another Canadian boy, Masadi, has been doing extremely well.
You know, it really is. We were talking about the unity thing, and you bring a flag, you come in here. It's a unified country. When it comes to the CFL and you're sitting in the stands, there's no question about it. The people out here still love the football game and the product that's on the field. Did they ever call you Mr. and Mrs. Sponge?
Well, sometimes Pee-wee Smith does, but that's about it.
Well, I won't call you that. Mr. and Mrs. Sapunjas, thanks for the time. We appreciate it.
Penalty echoing out against the Stampeders from Don Ellis. And this will keep the Argo drive going. On the sidelines, Mike Clemens shaken up. On the last play, he has 146 all-purpose yards so far tonight. Argo's first down. Kent Austin. Man open, it's Masadi far side. He reaches for a first down. What, about a foot short? As he reached out, stopped by Al Jordan.
He gave it the good stretch right there.
He certainly did.
Try and pick up that first down.
Mazzotti's had a nice night. Boreali's had a nice night. Crefo's had a nice night, and I don't think Climie has caught a pass in that all-Canadian Argo receiving corps.
Well, 7 times now that
Climie has won. Sorry, Lee.
7 times Paul Mazzotti has gone over 1,000 or 100 yards. So you look, the only other player on the team to do that was Rob Crefo. So Paul Mazzotti's really carried the load in that receiving corps this year.
Pinball is back, and he's got the ball again, but he takes a big hit from Marvin Coleman charging in from his right cornerback spot.
And I think they gave him a pretty generous spot on this one. Marvin Coleman, he's sneaky. I mean, we're not talking about a big guy here, but every once in a while he'll unload on some people. And right here, he unloads a pretty good shot on Mike Clemens to the outside. He comes right there. I don't know. I think he got a pretty generous spot, and they do, in fact, pick up the first down.
Argonauts trailing by a point at 22-21 as Austin with time looks for Mazzotti far side and overthrew him. We had a phone poll going tonight if you're just joining us, and here are some of the questions we asked and your responses. Should the CFL make any rule changes to make it more like the USF game, a US football game? And this is an overwhelming no to that, 91% to 9. It'll be 2nd and 10, Argos rights on the midfield stripe, the 55-yard line. 6:41 to go. Fourth quarter, Argos down by 1. Austin stands in over the middle in traffic, and Climie makes the catch. Markers are everywhere. Knox was on top of Climie. You think the import ratio should stay the same? And the response to that, 53% yes and 47% no.
Yeah, I think
this is a little dicey.
Pretty contentious issue, you know. Darren talked about it earlier. Darren talked about it earlier. Some of the Canadian teams really feel like in their special teams, and you know, when you thin out your roster, sometimes they're not playing on a level playing field, and I kind of agree with that. And I think that's one reason why that poll is so close.
The pinball, Mike Clemens inside the 40 for another 5 yards, met by Matt Finley. And 5 more to pinball's total on the Knights. How about this one? Should the American teams remain in the CFL? I found this a little surprising here. 69% in favor, 31% opposed.
I agree with that. I think it's been fun for a lot of the CFL cities to see San Antonio and David Archer come to town, Tracy Ham, Mike Pringle from Baltimore, and yeah, I'm not surprised by that. We're still taking calls, so there is still time if you want to try and participate in this.
Climie has the first down on 2nd and 7. And here's one.
Do you think the CFL will survive until the year 2000? 88% of the respondents on the telephone poll tonight thought it would. 12% thought things were a little dicey. We'll have the final results of our CFL phone-in poll on Sports Desk later tonight. And thanks to Commissioner Larry Smith for joining us at halftime and facing the grilling from Darren DeTitian. Argos first down. And Austin on target, short of the first down by a bunch as Morreale makes another catch. Not a bad receiving core going for the Argos right now. Morreale and Mazzotti outside. Rob Grifo and Jock Climby inside, and these guys have made some catches tonight.
Well, they work pretty hard for Kent Austin, and Austin himself has had a pretty good night of picking out his receivers. I think it all goes back to he's had lots of time to throw. I can't think of too many times that the Calgary front four, when they brought extra heat, have really got any hands up in his face. So give Kent Austin's offensive line some credit for protecting him pretty well.
Austin has a shot at retaking the lead and couldn't make contact with Mazzotti that time as Marvin Coleman took the feet out, or the legs out, from under Mazzotti that time.
I think Paul Mazzotti feels like maybe he should have been able to make this catch, and what you want to do is get Coleman out of his back pedal, and Mazzotti never really does, and well, you have to work pretty hard to come up with that catch. If you don't get a defensive back out of his back pedal, it's going to make your life pretty tough, and Mazzotti found that out.
Third down as Baker sets up. Chance for the Argos to retake the lead. They've held it several times tonight, and Baker nails another one. Toronto on top. It's 24-22 with 4:26 remaining at Skydome. Toronto on top of Calgary by 2. It's 24-22, 4:26 to go. Stampeders with the ball, and guess who's back at quarterback? Doug Flutie, good on 10 of 14 for 131 yards. He's been in and out of this ball game all night long. He's also rushed 6 times for 41, and he wants to be ready for the playoffs. That's obvious, so he's going to take a crack at running the Stampeder offense here. Stewart takes a big hit from Don Wilson. North Division playoffs beginning on the weekend. That's next weekend. Hamilton at Calgary. Ticats and the Stampeders have not met so far this season. And the other semifinal in the North has BC at Edmonton. The Eskimos have won both regular season contests from the Lions and will have home field at Commonwealth. Now it'll be Saskatchewan or Winnipeg at Baltimore, as Saskatchewan and Winnipeg try and grab the wild card berth for a date against the Southern team. Second down, a little better than 10. Flutie missed his target that time. Tyrone Williams was in the area, so was Terry Vaughn. Take your pick. And Dan Murphy put a pretty good hit on Tyrone Williams. In the South Division, it'll be Birmingham versus San Antonio. The site yet to be determined. Those two will get together on the final weekend of the season without Matt Dunnigan. Birmingham goes against San Antonio and David Archer. Clemens, the lone man deep for the Argonauts, as he has been much of this night. Martino standing at his 21 across the 25 to get a high kick away. Pinball retreating all the way back to the 25. Somehow found a way to squirt through for a couple. Greg Frears, number 6, the special teams tackle on the pinball that time. 8-yard return, 8 more for Mike Clemens total. All-purpose yards. Leadership is on the line, and Mike Clemens with 2,572, setting Mike Pringle with 1 full game to go. A pretty good target to win the title from Clemens this year, who finishes tonight, obviously.
Well, I think realistically it's going to be Corey Philpott or Chris Wright that will have the shot. I don't think Mike Pringle's going to play more than a half in that game against Hamilton on Sunday, so it'll be Corey Philpott tomorrow night and maybe Chris Wright on Sunday that have a shot. But I think Mike Clemens has built himself a pretty good lead, and you know, anybody that's going to overtake him is going to have a heck of an effort to do it now.
Timeout at Skydome. Less than 3 minutes to go. The Argos hang on to a 2-point lead. Tomorrow from BC Place, Saskatchewan Roughriders and the BC Lions. Final game of the season. Saskatchewan trying to claim a playoff spot. BC Lions will be a little snarly with Dave Ritchie trying to get them back in a winning mode heading into the playoffs against the Eskimos. Should be a pretty good ball game. Lions have something to prove, and Saskatchewan goes gunning for a spot in the playoffs.
Boy, you bet they do. The Lions have really struggled lately, and they need to have a quick fix to try and get them ready for the playoffs.
Argos first down. Austin shotgun pump fake to the near side, goes to the other side, and has Mazzati, who spun away from one. And McClanahan got him, number 41. But Mazzati will have the first down. Argos are 3-14. They might look to a better record if they won a couple of close ball games, but not much went right for the Argos in the early going.
You know, you look at that statistic, and you know, you can easily say the good teams win those games, and the not so good teams usually have statistics like that, and that's what's happened to Toronto.
Argos have a chance to win here. 2:39 to go. They lead it by 2 and have the ball. There was early movement. See if it's Stampeders moving early or if they were drawn offside.
You know, you have to look back to that last pass completion by Kent Austin. I mean, he looked one way, and he had the time to look back the other way.
Offside. Calgary number 51. Repeat first down.
How many times has Austin been able to do that this year? And it's because of the pass rush of the Calgary Stampeders just never really showed up tonight. I mean, this was a team that was challenging for the league lead in that department, and you know, I don't think they've had a hand on Kent Austin tonight.
Argonauts are 1st and 5. Here's the pinball, reversing his field and doing it again. This time it didn't work. Barely back to the original line of scrimmage. In fact, I think you'll have to take one off his all-purpose yards total. Aaron Detition has made as many moves as pinball tonight. Where are you now, Aaron?
Hey, isn't that the truth? As a matter of fact, we're way up here on the 500 level. These are this is what you would call the back row. It's definitely not the front row up here. You know, you talk to Mr. and Mrs. Sapunchis, you talk to Mr. and Mrs. Reed, you see what's right with the game of football. Cruising through the stands and talking to the fans, there really is a lot of optimism when it comes to the CFL. You have to take into consideration that the Toronto Argonauts have had an abysmal season, but yet they continue to come out and support their team, and they've been very energetic tonight and very lively. But still, when you get up here and you take a look around the Sky Dome, you look at a lot of empty seats up at this level, and you recognize that there are still some very inherent problems with the Canadian Football League. They've got to get more exposure into the southern states if it is to be successful there. I don't believe that there's any way whatsoever they could compete on a weekend basis with college football and the National Football League. If they are to survive down there, they're going to have to go to a weekday schedule. And scheduling's a big deal. That can either make you or break you. What about the Canadian centers? How much stability is there up here? We need patience by the owners. Mr. Horn Chen in Ottawa, he's got when he stepped in and bought the team, he couldn't have expected to make a profit and turn that franchise around after the disarray that it had been under. And yet the fans in Ottawa turned out and wholeheartedly supported the team this year, even though they had a rough season. When you lose the players that they did, I mean, that's to be expected. But, you know, all in all, if I had to assess the evening, the CFL, it's still doing quite fine. They've got a lot of problems, but we'll see what happens in the future. This league's far from dead still. Guys,
Paul Mazzati from Kent Austin. The Argos have a pretty good chance now to hang on for victory. Mazzati had only 2 touchdown receptions coming into this one, and he had all kinds of room behind Al Jordan here.
Well, he's had himself a great night and something to kind of take with him throughout a long off season. And for Kent Austin, maybe a lot of frustrations. Gonna feel a little better after these ones.
Baker adds the point after, and with less than 2 minutes to go, the Argonauts have the Stampeders on the ropes. Definitely a great night for the Canadian receiving corps. Paul Mazzotti has a touchdown, 46-yarder. And Austin has had his best night as an Argonaut.
Well, yes, he had lots of time to throw. And, you know, when that happens, a guy like Paul Mazzotti, an All-Canadian a year ago, and he give him that kind of time, and it's going to give a lot of corners trouble in this league. And he's given Al Jordan and Marvin Coleman all they can handle tonight. Yeah, there's the cousin, Joe Sardo. The cousin gets to say, nice going. Mike Morielli, the other cousin, will probably come over and say, nice going.
Another cousin in there, Guido Austin. Hitting John Hufnagel before the game about being the only non-Italian around that Stampeder bench.
I don't know how he keeps his job.
Well, they call him Giovanni. Giovanni Hufnagel.
They do. There's John Hufnagel. Of course, you got Wally Buono. You got Frank Spaziani, Bob Vespaziani, Tony Marciano.
Pee Wee Smith for the Stampeders out across the 20 to the 22. Impressive scoring drive by the Argonauts. One big play, 46 yards to Paul Mazzotti, but they traveled 78 yards in 5 plays, just under a minute. The Argos have not played well at Skydome all season long. Without doubt, this is their best effort before the home fans. Of course, they've only won a couple of games prior to this.
And now that the game is out of reach, you bet you take Doug Flutie out and you put Sean Moore back in.
Terry Vaughn. And he's very close to a first down. Vaughn with a solid season, closing in on 1,000 yards. In fact, he needed 61 tonight to get there. Should be awfully close right now. CIU football, the Golden Bears and the Saskatchewan Huskies. Rod Smith will be there along with Jamie Bowen for a kickoff at 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. if you're on the West Coast. Sean Moore looks deep, looks for Terry Vaughn. He's got it. Marcelo Simmons made the tackle, but he allowed Vaughn to get behind him.
Yeah, in the last couple of games, this has happened too many times to Marcelo Simmons. Joe Horn did it to him a week ago, and now Terry Vaughn over the top for a touchdown. I think they're going to have to take a look at this. You know, this is too many times people are getting in behind Simmons.
Secondary has been a major concern for the Argos all season long. Terry Vaughn, though, pretty solid receiver. And he can't get to that one. Right up there for a close-up. Terry, if you'll turn around, we'll get a good picture of you. Terry Vaughn out of Arizona in his rookie season. As it
First down.
So the Stampeders will have a first down. I don't have a 13 listed for the Argos. It must be Miro or perhaps, oh, I'm sorry, Eaglin. Eaglin in relief as the backup there. Former Tiger Cat. A minute 19 to go. Argonauts on top, 31-22. Stampeders driving for a touchdown with a first down here. Sean Moore in big-time trouble and away from that. End zone toss, not quite. Pee Wee Smith, the intended receiver. Joe Miro got over to cover. They were close.
Well, you know, I don't think there's any question the Stampeders would like to get the score here, and of course they still need more than just a touchdown. pretty good pass by Sean Moore rolling to his right, and Pee Wee Smith initially had it, but somehow Joe Miro got the arm in there and was able to knock it loose from him.
1:08 to play, fourth quarter. Argos Stampeders, final night of the year for the Argos. Stampeders ready for the playoffs. Next week against the Tiger Cats.
In front, in front, in front.
Sean Moore looks to Sapunjas. He can't make the catch. Joe Fuller back in coverage on Sapunjas, number 29.
Dave Sapunjas, number 3 receiver. Usually that's a pretty good matchup for Sapunjas with all this field to work at, but look at the position of Joe Fuller. Just stays underneath, and now as soon as he sees Sapunjas' eyes get big, that's when he turns his head, and you know, he distracts Sapunjas just enough that he can't make the catch.
1:01 remaining. Stampeders one last crack at it, and Vaughn had the pass behind him. Simmons was covering. Not quite a Grey Cup celebration for the Argos, but they've had a long season.
When you've had a year like they've had, you know, I think you can allow yourself to do this when you win the final game of the season against the number 1 team in the league, the Calgary Stampeders. Heck, why not? You might as well celebrate. You know, take this one home, and got a lot of months to think about it. You know, a game like this, all of a sudden you start to think what might have been had we just played a little bit better.
A little better, a little earlier. A couple of victories along the way in the early going of the season could have kept the Argos in the playoff hunt until the final weekend. Here's Mike Clemens with 52 seconds on the clock.
Yeah, they're just saying, no, pinball. We're going to give you the ball and let you just keep adding to your total in that all-purpose yardage category.
And let Pringle and the rest of those guys shoot for it on the final weekend of the season. Pinball has the lead. He's added substantial yardage tonight.
The only, you know, you look at the all-purpose, and, you know, I was really hoping that Mike Clemens will win that title this year, but you get Hamilton in Baltimore, and if Hamilton doesn't have any offense, you know Chris Wright's going to return a lot of punts, and if Hamilton has a lot of offense, Chris Wright's going to return a lot of kickoffs. So he's about the only guy that I think Corey Philpott maybe might have a chance to.
They'll have a couple of yards to make up on the pinball Mike Clemens, who never stops moving his feet. 22 seconds to go in the Argos season. Dave Ritchie and the BC Lions host the Saskatchewan Roughriders. We'll have it for you 10:30 Eastern time tomorrow, 7:30 Pacific. So the Lions gear up for the playoffs, and the Roughriders hope that they're going to be there. Seven seconds on the clock. The Argos season will end with a victory, and Ken Austin's finest hour has a Toronto Argonaut to pinball.
What the heck was that little jump there? I've never seen that one.
He jumped up in the air.
Jump for joy.
Well, he had a pretty nice night. And of all the Argonauts, the pinball had a pretty nice season. Time now for the TSN Turning Points. Brought to you by Sony.
John, it came late in the fourth quarter. The Argos hanging on to a 24-22 lead, and they put the game away with this Paul Mazzotti touchdown catch, his 10th reception of the night, and that put the game away for the Toronto Argonauts.
A cash donation will be made to the Canadian Coaches Association for the training and development of amateur athletes on behalf of TSN and Sony. The new Sony Handycam Vision, clearly the latest in video cameras. Well, a few flags waving at the Sky Dome and something to celebrate at long last for the Toronto Argonauts. They end the season with their best performance of 1995 and come away with a 31-22 victory over the Calgary Stampeders, a team that just happens to have the best record in the Canadian Football League. So a little something to smile about on the final night for the Argos. Stampeders, meantime, get ready for the playoffs. Here's Darren DeTisha.
Hey, thanks very much, John. I am joined now by Doug Flutie, quarterback for the Calgary Stampeders. Doug, first of all, how does the arm feel?
Felt great. All the stopping and starting, by the end of the game, it's starting to stiff up now, and I could feel it getting a little stiff. But there's no soreness, and it felt real strong while I was throwing a football, so I was pretty happy with it.
You were in there sporadically tonight. We see your numbers, 11 of 16 in the contest. Could you go 4 quarters if need be?
Oh, yeah, it'd be a lot easier to go 4 quarters rather than starting and stopping, starting and stopping. It allowed it to cool down and stiffen up on me a little bit. I just needed to get a little bit of work. He wanted to let Sean show what he could do today. I was trying to tempt him to put me in towards the end, but it didn't really matter at the end of the ball game, down by 2 scores.
How hyped up were you for this football game? Because you were rushing the ball, and I noticed in the first quarter when you were taking the snaps, you were ready to go.
Yeah, I was ready to go. We put a lot of stuff in for short yardage situations because we had trouble moving the ball against them in short yardage. So Huff wanted me in there so I could do the audibles, get to the option if need be, do whatever. And that's where the running came in.
Now the regular season comes to a close. 18 weeks ago we started this season. It's been somewhat trying for yourself personally with the injury, considering the start that you got off to. You were having another fantastic MVP type year. Now it's the playoffs. I don't want to say it's for real now, but this is where the fun really begins.
Yeah, this is what it's all about. This is what we've been waiting for a year, 11 months. And, you know, it's been a couple of years since we won the Cup. And we feel we have as good a shot as anybody, and we want to go get it. So now's the time to turn it up and go get it.
Will you be starting against the Ticats?
I don't know. I certainly hope so. I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
What about the Hamilton team? You guys haven't faced them all season long. It's kind of a scheduling anomaly, but now you guys get them at home in the first round. What do you know about the team, and have you guys looked at some film this past week?
I looked at a little film yesterday with Huff, and they do a lot of things that we used to do defensively. Steve Taylor's a mobile quarterback with Sudsy there. So Steve Taylor's a mobile quarterback. He can do some things to cause some problems. I really don't know too much about him, though.
Hey, it was great to see you back in there. Good luck the rest of the way, particularly in the playoffs. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks very much, Doug.
I appreciate it very much.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment.
CFL Live on TSN. Brought to you by Pepsi. Nothing else is a Pepsi. And by Bell. Advantage long-distance services from the Alliance of Canada's only full-service telecommunications companies.
So on their final game of the regular season, the Toronto Argonauts give their fans something to cheer about tonight at Skydome. We'd like to thank those of you out there who phoned in and participated in our polls. Don't think for a moment that the CFL and the Commissioner, Larry Smith, won't look at those numbers and consider them. You were a factor tonight, and for that, we are definitely grateful. Make sure you stay tuned to the Sports Network. We've got more CFL action for you tomorrow night. Is this going to be a game? The Saskatchewan Roughriders are in BC to take on the Lions. Saskatchewan wins. They are in the playoffs. We'll have all of it for you starting at 10:30 Eastern Time. That'll do it for us tonight. Thanks for watching. Good night.